Are we good to get started? All right. Well, welcome everyone to our governing board meeting. All right, today is Tuesday, August 22nd, and two important special days today, important to my household, a lot of young kids. We have National Tooth Fairy Day, so make sure everyone's leaving their tooth underneath the pillows, and hopefully the tooth fairy will come by with some coins or cash. And also World Plant Milk Day, so give the cows a break and make sure you support your plant milk industry as much as possible. Ms. Borboa, can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Luna Rose?
Here.
Mr. Romero?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here.
Dr. Ravi?
Here. Okay. So we're going to go into our land acknowledgement statement, and we have another staff member to read that. Is in person or via Zoom? Oh, in person. There we go. We have Mr. Cameron Taravati, Senior Director for EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusiveness Department. Cameron began his career in education 17 years ago as a high school English teacher. He quickly transitioned into the role of an instructional coach, and in a short time was serving as a principal in a small school district where he worked with multiple teams to turn around failing schools. He has proudly served TUSD as a principal of Gridley Middle School, Hollinger K-8, and Wakefield Middle School. Currently, he is a Senior Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusiveness. He has served on the state's 21st Century Vision Team, the TUSD Middle School Reform Committee, the Legacy of Excellence Committee, and the Lapin College Club Leadership Council. He is presented at local, state, and national conferences on topics ranging from education policy to the use of data to drive after-school programming. Mr. Taravati holds a Bachelor's of Arts from Wichita State University and a Master's with distinction from Northern Arizona University in Educational Leadership. He spends most of his free time with his 11-year-old son and his wonderful wife visiting his in-laws in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Thank you for being here tonight to read this.
Thank you, Board President. Board, on behalf of the Governing Board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Cameron Taravati, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pascua Yaqui tribe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have our Pledge of Allegiance, and is our student via Zoom or in person? Via Zoom. Okay. And we do have interpretation services, right? Okay. So tenemos servicios de interpretación. Si necesita servicios de interpretación, por favor indique con la mesa por lado aquí. We have Vanessa, is it Salis? Celeste, who's a fourth grader at Sam Hughes Elementary School. Vanessa is a very talented little artist who enjoys drawing and painting. She is friendly, courageous, and has a big heart. She also enjoys listening to music and dancing, watching her sister play softball, and spending time with her family and friends. And thank you for joining us tonight. How are things going start of the school year?
It's going really good.
What's your favorite subject right now, Vanessa?
It's math.
Math, awesome. It's great to have some great mathletes here. And you're ready to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance today?
Yes.
All right, ask everyone to stand. Go ahead and get started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Vanessa, and hope you have a magnificent fourth grade year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Trujillo, are there any agenda adjustments for tonight?
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board, we have one agenda adjustment. As we have a guest from Valley Schools that will be joining us for tonight's employee benefits informational update, we'd like to move item 9.1 to directly following call to the audience.
Okay, and then we're removing an item for the agenda as well, or?
That's our lone agenda adjustment.
Okay, all right. Any objections to the agenda adjustment? Seeing none, unanimous consent for that. And then we go over to our awards and recognitions. Dr. Trujillo.
Members of the governing board, Tucson Unified Community, welcome to our second meeting in August. And tonight, as always, we love to start celebrating, starting each meeting celebrating the success and the passion and the commitment of our staff and our students. So tonight, it is a bittersweet opportunity to say goodbye to one of our long-serving crossing guards. And we want to thank Mr. Leo Robles for 24 years of dedicated service to safety for our students. He has been an exceptional member of the TUSD family, devoting a quarter century of his life to the protection of children and young people and helping them safely cross the street. But more than that, he has been a constant presence in the lives of children, a mentor, a coach, somebody they can talk to, a friendly and a welcoming face to and from school. And I know we don't often talk as much as we should and celebrate as much as we should the contributions of our operations teams and our classified employees, but they have such a huge impact on the lives of children. Leo's love, a dedication, and commitment to keeping our kids safe, it's been inspirational, and his impact on our community is immeasurable. So on behalf of the entire TUSD community, I do want to say thank you to Leo for his quarter century of service to the children of the Tucson Unified School District, and wish him all the best in health and happiness in his retirement. And I do believe that we have a short video for Mr. Robles.
My name is Leo Robles. I've been with TUSD Crossing Guard for 24 years. I just retired this past year. The important thing about crossing guards is that the kids that you cross in the morning are the ones, when they leave home, you're the first ones they see in the morning. In the afternoon, they're the last ones to see you going home. Very important for that because it gives them very, very strong support. I did this job for 24 years because this was the most enjoying and very, 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 very helpful for kids, and the kids were very, very important to me. My family and my kids at home were the most important in my life, and I think that kids need to be assured that they go to school early in the morning, and the most important part about it is that it's very, very important for them to be very secure. If you want this job, this particular job, you have to really like kids and enjoy being out here every day, early in the morning, for 2 or 3 hours a day, and you enjoy people and you enjoy the kids that come to school every day. I really recommend this job to people that really enjoy kids here at Gridley Middle School and at Anna Henry Elementary. The staff has been wonderful to me, especially the principal here at Gridley. She has been wonderful, and the office manager and her staff has been wonderful to me. It's been a pleasure for me for 24 years. My experience with TUSD is that we have wonderful people.
Of applause for Mr. Robles and his service. And tonight, this evening, marks the first of a year-long effort and priority on the part of our leadership team to recognize staff excellence. So tonight, we're going to be awarding the first of many, as we will do one each month throughout the school year, of the Superintendent's Staff Excellence Award for employees that go well and above the call of duty in the service of children, families, and community each and every single day, all around the ranks, all around our schools, in all areas of the district, administrative, certificated, and classified. So we'll begin tonight with tonight's employee who was brought to my attention by the Franks family out at Miller Elementary, who experienced some delays and some troubles getting their kids home from school in the first couple of days of school. We had a couple of nervous children who were scared and upset because their parents hadn't yet been to the school to pick them up. But it was the kindness of Mr. Sam Martin that inspires us this evening. As busy as he is as a school safety officer, with the job of going from school to school throughout the school day in his patrol car, he took it upon himself to go above and beyond the call of duty by seeing these upset children and personally walking them home from school, from Miller Elementary all the way to their home. Mr. and Mrs. Franks were just beyond words in terms of how impressed they were and how thankful they were with Sam and his commitment to service and keeping their children safe. So tonight, I want to personally thank Mr. Martin for this exemplary service, his dedication and his role here in the district of keeping kids safe. It's commendable, it's inspirational, and it's evident that he is here for the children, literally. So I want to bring Mr. Sam Martin up and award him for the month of August, the Superintendent Staff Excellence Award. Or Mr. Martin, yes. So a few weeks ago, we celebrated one of the premier events here in the Tucson Unified School District that does a really wonderful job of bringing the community together. It's become a ceremonial kickoff to the beginning of the school year. It is Impact Tucson, and if you haven't been out to Palo Verde for an Impact Tucson event, you are really missing out. It's become one of our premier end of summer events heading into the school year. And this year we had an amazing, amazing day out there at Palo Verde High School. Over 2,700 in attendance, 41 new families coming into the district, 111 registered students, and we had 50 resource vendors providing access and opportunity to all attendees to gain access to valuable community resources. And most impressively is we had 200 food bags distributed throughout the event. Now, that kind of work doesn't just come together out of thin air. It takes a hard-working, dedicated, and passionate team. And that team is led by Dr. Kanasha Brown. I'd like her to come up here and help me out with this next portion. Let's give Dr. Brown a round of applause. Her and her team working diligently with the staff at Palo Verde High School to make this happen. I'd like her to join me in recognizing some amazing community members that helped our team pull off Impact Tucson. So we had some individuals that were invited here tonight for their own unique impact at this back to school event. I want to start with Mercedes Williams through Starbucks Cares. Starbucks Cares sponsored the rides and activities in the Kids Zone and rallied dozens of volunteers who distributed free Starbucks pastries and refreshments and were happy to lend a hand wherever they could throughout the event. We could not have done this, and the event would not have been the same without Starbucks Cares. So I want to give Mercedes Williams a round of applause if Mercedes is here with us. Come on up, Mercedes, because there's going to be a picture coming up, okay? Our next group brought their scissors, their skills, their talents, and their passion to Palo Verde High School to ensure that our students were ready for what young people are most passionate about before that first day of school. It's a haircut, right? So I want to thank this next group. They brought their skills to the event to make sure that our kids were ready and looking ready and fresh for that first day of school. So I'm going to start with Deanna Grissett from Melvira's Hair Salon, JJ Mahmood from Headliners Barbershop, Then we have Leonel Carvajal, Anthony Fleming, Herman Velasquez with In the Cut Barbershop, and Nick Bazan and Max Castillo from Luke's Barber Studio. If any of you are here, why don't you come up here and join us for recognition. Let's give them a round of applause. And I'm going to ask Dr. Brown to award some plaques of appreciation, yes, to our team members. This group of skilled and talented stylists and barbers combined for almost 80 haircuts in only 4 hours, and they refused to leave the event until the very last student got a haircut. But more than haircuts, they empowered our students to walk through the school hallway that first day of school with confidence and ready to attack a new school year, ready to embrace a school year with enthusiasm, positivity, and good thoughts on that first day of school. So please join me in thanking these hardworking community members and professionals for making the first day of school an amazing experience for so many kids. Okay, so thank you again for supporting the Tucson Unified School District. And we have another recognition that we would like to do before we head into tonight's performance. This was a big one. So we had a family, Cindy Goritz and her family, donate $10,000 worth of new clothes that were distributed to students during the Impact Tucson event. In a world that often seems filled with self-interest, it's people like the Goritz family who remind us of the profound effect that one incredible act of kindness can have, especially in the lives of children. Their contribution goes far beyond providing clothes. It was a gift that empowered our students to face this new school year with confidence, dignity, and excitement, and it sends a powerful message of solidarity, support, and community belief in the power of public education. To the Goritz family, we express our deep appreciation to your donation and for making the future of our students that much brighter. If we have any representatives of the Goritz family here this evening, can you please come forward and be recognized? Yes. A round of applause. And if you thought that the good times before we get into the business part of the meeting were over, you're wrong, because we have a very, very special treat to kick off this evening's governing board meeting. I am proud to present one of the premier and the most legendary and iconic performance arts groups in the entire district, and one of the most critically acclaimed mariachi groups in the state of Arizona, if not the nation. The award-winning Mariachi Aslan de Pueblo was founded in the fall of 1992 as a curricular component within the Pueblo High School Performing Arts Department by Mr. Richard Carranza. Yes, that's the same Richard Carranza that served as the chancellor for the New York public school system. Celebrating their 31st anniversary this year, students selected for this premier ensemble maintain a high level of academic achievement in order to remain on the first team. Their extensive practice and performance schedule also demands most of their free time. The 23-piece Mariachi Aslan has gained a reputation for excellence, sharing the stage with many of the world's finest mariachi ensembles, symphony orchestras, and world-renowned artists like Pink Martini, Rufus Wainwright III, Calexico, and Rita Moreno. This summer, they participated in the 4th of July parade in Washington, D.C. Through their music, they are continuously promoting a manifest pride in their cultural background and are an excellent example of the best our youth has to offer. And I will also say they are also some of the hardest working, fundraising young people that we have in the district. Their program is almost entirely funded by the hard work of their fundraising efforts and all of the gigs they play around the city of Tucson. They're also one of the most requested mariachi groups to perform all over the city of Tucson. So it is with pleasure that I present for your listening pleasure, Mariachi Aslan de Pueblo.
Empiezo a necesitarlo cada día más y más y más. A veces he llegado a expirarlo y escondida me pongo a temblar. Resulta demasiado triste, demasiado alegre, demasiado irreal. Empiezo a reconocerlo, lo que ahora siento tenía que llegar. Es algo, aunque lo deseo, me da miedo por mi corta edad. Camino y no piso el suelo, imagino cosas, hablo por hablar. Despierta, sueño que lo veo y que suavemente me empieza a abrazar. Si sueño, despierto agitada, creyéndolo cerca, pero nunca está. Auxilio, me estoy enamorando, solo vivo pensando en él. Platico de él conmigo misma día a día, noches, rato a rato. Auxilio, me estoy enamorando y quisiera gritarlo, que es solo por él por quien suspiro y no puedo ni he podido evitarlo. Es algo, aunque lo deseo, me da miedo por mi corta edad. Camino y no piso el suelo, imagino cosas, hablo por hablar. Despierta, sueño que lo veo y que suavemente me empieza a abrazar. Si sueño, despierto agitada, creyéndolo cerca, pero nunca está. Auxilio, me estoy enamorando, solo vivo pensando en él. Platico de él conmigo misma día a día, noches, rato a rato. Auxilio, me estoy enamorando y quisiera gritarlo, que es solo por él por quien suspiro y no puedo ni he podido evitarlo. Evitarlo.
Ay, qué bonito es bailar, es donde el tilingo-lingo, que lo pueden zapatear, todo chino como el gringo. Ay, qué bonito es bailar, es donde el tilingo-lingo, que lo pueden zapatear, todo chino como el gringo. Ay, repica, pica, pica, repica y repiqueteando, qué bonitas todas las que están bailando.
es un fandango de ritmo muy singular. Hay que poner ser muy chango para podernos zapatear. Aire pica, 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 repica, aire piqueteando. Qué bonitas, todas las que estoy mirando.
El sol del tilingolingo es un ritmo sabrosón que se baila con estilo de la bamba y el lanzón.
Pica, 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 repica y repiqueteando. Qué bonitas, todas las que están bailando.
Time for Mariachi Aslan under the direction of Mr. John Contreras.
Thank you, Johnny.
Bye. That was wonderful. Jeez, wow. What grade? That was wonderful. Oh, they're high school, I think. They're high school. Great. Oh, yeah, Pueblo,
okay.
Pueblo High School, yeah. Oh, high school students. That was amazing.
Cheers to my eye.
President Shaw, members of the governing board, that concludes the awards and recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. What a treat to have these amazing performances at our board meetings, these last couple of meetings. Really highlights some of the amazing work that I know we're all proud of supporting as members of the governing board and for all of our community support as well. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is our board member activity reports. And again, a chance for us in the second meeting of our each month to go over what we've been doing as board members, visiting schools and departments and community members to really help us be stronger and better at the work that we're doing. Would anybody like to report anything that they've done over the last month since our last meeting? Ms. Luna Rose?
Thank you, Dr. Shaw, and thank you everybody for coming this evening. We always appreciate your support. Although school just started, just a few items to mention. First, actually, an event I went to before I got here today. The Tucson Hispanic Chamber, and I'd like to thank them for inviting me. They had an event at the Pima Community College Aviation Technology Center, which is right on the other side of Tucson International. It was a congressional town hall, so to speak, with our two congressmen, Congressman Raul Grijalva and Congressman Juan Cisco Mani. And I was invited on behalf of the board. As some may know, Congressman Grijalva used to serve on this board many years ago. I remember him being on the board in the 1980s when I was an elementary school student. And I actually am not lying because my mom dragged me to school board meetings, so I remember him. And then, of course, Ms. Grijalva, just, now Supervisor Grijalva and her daughter were just here. Congressman Cisco Mani is a Rincon grad, class of 2000, so woohoo, go Rangers. I did not know that until today and had a really lovely discussion with him. And wanted to give a shout out to Principal Frank Rothenhauser over at Pueblo. He had 5 of his Pueblo warriors with him. They got invited to today's event as well, so they got to meet both members of Congress. It was a really well-attended event from different community members, and they spoke on different topics: immigration, budget reform, and of course education. So I was happy to represent. And then on a personal note, just attended as a parent the open house at Rincon last week, and as well as the first PTA meeting of the year. And I'd like to mention that because our schools always want parents to be on the PTA or the booster club or the site council. So if I can implore you, since school has just started, I'm sure your child's school, for those who are listening or those here in the audience, even if you're a grandparent or a community member that wants to go back, they can always use your support. So I'd like to put a plug in for the parent groups.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Luna Rose. Ms. Shaw, go ahead. And then Ms. Ekstrom, is your hand up? And then Mr. Romero. Okay.
All right, thank you, and good evening, everyone. So over the last few weeks, I had a meeting with a community member who's interested in serving on the Addiction Recovery Task Force, and so I have recommended them to Dr. Trujillo. Next, I had a private meeting with a staff member who's concerned with some issues and some changes that's happening at their department. And also, I reached out to one of the football coaches at the university to see if we can strengthen our collaborative relationship with the University of Arizona and our high schools. Hopefully that pans out. And then today, I also attended my daughter's open house over at Lineweaver. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, everybody. This month was a little bit not too busy because I wanted to wait to visit schools until school had started, and we'd given principals a little bit of time to get adjusted to the new school year. But I did meet with some teachers and some parents and some staff members, so it's always great to hear from people and for me to be able to facilitate any problems that occur or concerns that happen. So please know that whether it's a weekend, Sunday, Saturday, I am available and I'm here to hear your concerns. I also attended my daughter's open house today before we got here at Lineweaver Elementary. I'm also on the PTO there. So yes, we are always looking for parents or family members to be a part of the PTO or school staff, school community. And that's about it for this month.
Go ahead.
All right, so I had a very busy month. First of all, we started off with the impact event at Palo Verde. The day started off great with VIP parking at Palo Verde, and then also in the auditorium, karaoke with Kenesha Brown, going old school in the auditorium, singing Al Green's Let's Stay Together. And so she sang that song to kind of break the ice while people were getting set. Spent some time with the Chief of Police, Chad Kazmar, before he went into the dunk tank, and then I enjoyed the event. It was a well-orchestrated event. Vendors, information, education. You saw some of the different things earlier. There was a lot of work that went into putting this on, along with the vendors and sponsors. Again, approximately 2,700 plus attendees and so many TUSD volunteers. The passion that TUSD teachers, administration, staff impressed me. Overall, after free Starbucks booth, free haircuts, clothing, and backpacks, I would have to say I was a highlight in the dunk tank. No, just kidding. So yes, we have some great future softball and baseball players in TUSD. I got dunked about 30 to 35 times. And just to set the record straight, Dr. Ravi missed the dunk button throwing softballs at me.
I hit it, but it was not strong enough.
But somehow had made a mad dash to the dunk button and landed me in the water. Kanisha, I'm willing to participate next year as long as you don't leave Dr. Trujillo out of the fun. Great event. Oh, and he's not here to hear that. First day of school, I was back at Blendman. Principal Mack, her awesome office staff, and the happiest crossing guards I've met that create smiles at the intersection of 5th and Country Club. Went to Miller Elementary, and the new principal, Catherine Sable, home of the Mustangs, and she is submitting for 21st Century. And I hope that they will be in consideration for that, as I believe it will benefit that's for this school. I visited the home of the Mountain Lions at Maldonado. One word, wow. Principal Ramirez is a visionary, forward thinker, preparer, has a beautiful campus, and one of the most well-oiled machines in TUSD. Phenomenal custodians, great school personality. She has a great team and an awesome library. With all the good at the district, we need to get work on getting that attendance up. Lawrence Lobos, the only TUSD for 3 through 8, which I found that story. Mahalo to Principal Stanbrook. Lawrence is on the Pascoyaki land, and I was given a history lesson as well as a school tour. Very nice campus. Also visited Van Burskik, home of the Bears. A small but mighty school, a trajectory charging school, which is something new I found. Principal Bajaras is amazing, and her team is doing great things for her young scholars. I met with Loris Duran Serrata, the interim chancellor of academic affairs with Pima College, learned about the summer programs to assist TUSD senior students to increase proficiency to prepare them for college. Visited with Davidson Dragons. Principal Sarah has been there 7 years, and just for my board members, I was the first board member to visit her campus, so just put her on your radar. Davis Dragons. Also went into the classroom where a teacher that had been in public education for 30 years, and I was also the first board member to visit her classroom. This school visit was school visit number 49, a newer campus, great outdoor learning areas, and Mr. Spikes, the rescue bearded dragon, is their live mascot, and he's molting right now if you want to go see that. We also went to Gridley Middle School, visit number 50, home of the Grizzly Bears. Principal Ortiz Montoya has a great staff and teachers surrounding her, including Mr. Nichols with the orchestra department and Mr. Tim, monitor and track and cross country coach. Beautiful and very clean campus. Also went out to Soling Tom, school visit 51, home of the Dragons. Met with my long-lost brother, Principal Dotson, and he's not really my brother, but we went into one of the second grade school rooms, and they thought we were brothers, so we're going with that. Another clean and beautiful campus, wonderful staff, strong teacher corps, very active PSTA. Went to Steele Elementary, the Steele Stallions, school visit 52, met with Principal Harris, and did a great job of introducing me to everyone from office staff, teachers, kitchen staff, custodians, etc. She's very proud and supportive of her team and the students. Gale Elementary, visit number 53, home of the Tigers. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger from what I'm hearing. Gale is also an A-rated school. Principal Asalo is doing a great job with great things at Gale. And our teachers and classrooms very structured, as well as fun, as each room has their own theme, from the dinosaur room, the bee room, the space room, even the Zen den. One of the students representing the student body gave me my very own Gale Tiger t-shirt. And all I got from Soling Tong was a dragon dollar. So anyway, step up your game, brother Dotson. So just kidding. And then Sewell Elementary, school number 54, home of the Sabercats, Principal Gao, selling it into Sewell as her first year as principal. And she has some great goals she has set for her and the Sewell community, meeting some of the team she has around her. She appears to have the support to be successful. I want to celebrate also our Pueblo High School students. They took the initiative and wanted to extend aloha to the Lahaina Luna High School in Maui. in their time of tragedy and distress. I'm grateful Principal R reached out to me to partner with them to support our student council and spread aloha to our ohana in the Maui community. Again, to quote a cartoon of one of my favorites from my granddaughter with Stitch, ohana means family, and family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. So Pueblo, thank you for raising things and to send to the high school affected in Maui. And then also, lastly, I'm working with Ed Ackerley and Coaches for Charity to get 1,000 notebooks for our Utterback Unicorn students. If you want to donate, you can check out my Facebook page. It's TCB and TUSD for links to donate, or drop off notebooks off at Utterback or at my store, and I will get them to Utterback, as we're hoping to have these by the end of the month. And that concludes my board report.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Romero. Will we see you in a T-shirt instead of an Elvis outfit next time you're out and about? Maybe? All right. So my last month here, it's been a great couple of weeks with the start of the school year. In July, while the weather was still very hot, I joined the Milagro community up in northwest Tucson. We have a property there, TUSD, budding a community that's really focused on sustainability and nature, to talk about outdoor learning spaces and how we can potentially increase curriculum for outdoor learning for our students. I also was able to attend the Impact TUSD Festival at Palo Verde High School. I came with my 3 kids, and my father joined us as well. Great event. My kids had a great time. And I want to give props to you, Mr. Romero, how many times you were dunked in that heavy Elvis outfit. That must have weighed a ton. And I will say that one of my hits was a direct hit, but there was some malfunction that it didn't dunk. And my kids all got a chance as well. More recently, I had a chance to visit with Food Facilities Services. I got a tour of their facilities, the amazing warehouse that we have. I'd never seen a refrigerated warehouse that big before in the past, so it was really interesting seeing that. Thank you for Lindsay Aguilar, Director of Food Services, for the tour and for a lot of education about what's going on in terms of how we feed our students throughout our district. And of course, with the personal touch, getting to 2 campuses with kids in 6th grade and in kindergarten at Alicevale and Lineweaver Elementary School, and able to attend Alicevale's open house last week. And thank you, Mr. Prebles, the principal there, and all the amazing teachers and staff for a wonderful evening, really understanding what's going on with my daughter's experience in the Alicevale community. So great job there. So thank you, everyone in the governing board, for all of your representation of our district this past month. Mr. Romero, I'll turn it back over to you for our call to the audience.
Public participation at board meetings. Members of the public may speak during the call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speakers must state their full name, topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once, and they may not transfer or delegate their times to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff, and they will ensure each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and are speaking before the board shall observe rules of good conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware that there may be children present and listening. At the end of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. So right now we have Stephanie Kirk, followed by Tara Radliff.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Kirk. I just want to give props to Val Romero. I'm impressed with how many schools you have visited. That's impressive. Thank you for doing that. I am here to support action item 8.2. I feel like it is very important as a teacher perspective as well as a parent. What is 8.2? It's a policy for staff use of digital communications and electronic devices with our students. What are some of the reasons as to why I support this? Because I know that for high school children, they often will have a communication from their high school teacher, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with having another staff member look at that, say the principal, and making sure that the parent is okay with those communications. And the reason is because 29-year-old Zabella Brazil Vinnick was recently convicted of inappropriate relationships with a 15-year-old student here at TUSD. I'm frustrated with that because she was a teacher at Tucson High, and I believe if everybody looks into that, I do believe it was stated that's how some of the communication happened, was through the cell phone. So again, as a teacher and a parent, I think that is important that 8.2 gets looked at and a policy is made to make sure that our children are safe communicating with any staff at school and that the parents know about it. Thank you.
Tara Radliff.
My name is Tara Radliff. I'll be speaking on two topics. Regarding the presentation by the CFO during the last meeting, the CFO did not address many issues that I had previously raised regarding the Q Space Club. The club's funds are reported on the district's transparency site as the GSA Club, but on the last 2 years' reports of the Student Activity Fund, the club is listed as the Technicolor Gay Straight Alliance, and everyone refers to the club publicly as the Q Space Club. The club code may be the same, but that is not what is being presented to the public. I will again remind you that during the June 13th meeting, the CFO told you that the Q Space Club was not on the Student Activities Fund report. Shouldn't he, of all people, know that the club was being reported under a different name? This lack of transparency leaves many questions unanswered. Regarding your policy GBA-R, specifically restroom and locker room accessibility, it states individuals and employees shall have access to restrooms and locker rooms corresponding to their gender identity. The current Title IX law only prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, not gender identity. The current administration has proposed changes to Title IX that might allow biological boys to use girls' bathrooms, etc., but this proposal has no force of law until it's ruled on by the courts, which has not occurred. The Arizona Department of Ed has advised schools to not implement policy allowing gender identity to dictate restroom, locker room, or shower facility access. It warned that males could still be held accountable for impropriety, regardless of ideology, and stated schools can provide separate facilities that meet the needs of transgender students without compromising the dignity of others. Subjecting a female to being in a small, private, and safe space with a male is reckless and a violation of the girl's expected privacy. A boy's brain and genitalia still acts as male even when a boy thinks he is not. This is a biological fact. Have you considered how this affects victims of sexual abuse? How will you keep your female students and employees safe from predators who will exploit this policy to access intended victims in a small and private space? Forcing this policy on everyone comes at what cost? The message this policy sends is that you don't care that females will feel victimized and you're okay with and enabling this environment. This situation needs to be corrected to make girls' restrooms a safe space again. It's not too late to correct it. Look for an answer using the phrase, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And in this case, clearly you are deciding in favor of the small minority over the greater good of the majority. Thank you.
This concludes our call to the audience.
Thank you, Clerk Romero. This is a chance for any board members to respond to any criticism, ask for items to move on to other board agendas, or ask for clarification. All right, seeing none. All right, thank you. I'll conclude our call to the audience tonight. And we will move on to our consent agenda. Dr. Trujillo.
I believe we had item 9.1.
Oh, thank you, yes. All right, that's correct. Thank you for that correction. We'll be doing item 9.1 first and then going to our consent agenda. I understand we have outside speakers who are here for item 9.1. And this is our Employees Benefit Trust Fund expenditure update.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board, I would like to welcome our team. We have our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Ricky Hernandez. We also have our Chief Human Capital Officer, Mr. John Fernandez. We have a guest from Valley Schools who will also be joining us. Tonight is just an informational study session on the state of the Employee Benefits Trust. It's an opportunity for the board to review the major expenditures and areas of expenditures coming out of the Employee Benefits Trust Fund over the last couple of years. It's also an opportunity for the board to look at the current state of employee participation in the different plans that we offer. For those of you in the viewing public and certainly our employees, we know that one of the biggest decisions that you will make as a governing board every single year is approval of the presented or the recommended employee benefits package. So we try to give you ample opportunity to study all sides of our Employee Benefits Trust as often as we can. So I'm going to welcome our Chief Financial Officer, Ricky Hernandez, to lead us off.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, board members. So,
is the microphone on? Is the microphone on?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you. Sorry, I can hardly. Not picking up.
I'm not going to touch it.
There we go. Much better. Okay.
I'm not going to touch it. All right. So I'm going to give you just kind of a financial overview of last fiscal year, this fiscal year's Employee Benefits Trust, just very high level information, looking at some patterns in regards to our expenditures, our investment into our employees' benefits and the trust fund that we've set up to pay for those. John will follow up with a little bit more kind of in-depth detail in regards to the actual plans and the participation rates. But we'll start with the boring stuff first. Okay. So the financial summary. This is just a really quick high-level summary. This is information that we generally present to our Board of Trustees that manage the employee benefits. So on the left, you can see in the red that through the period that ended June 30th of 2022, we ended up actually coming out with a net gain of just over 2.6 million. This is just ordinary income and expense going out. So these are contributions from employees, the contributions from the district, and the expenses to actually manage the plan, whether we're paying benefits, the administrative costs, and then interest earnings, because we do have the dollars that are contributed by employees and by the district. Since we're not necessarily paying them right away, we invest the dollars and make sure that they're earning interest. So about a year ago in 2022, we earned about $2.6 million. As of June 30th, this is unreconciled and unaudited. We were just under $1 million in ordinary income coming through. Obviously, our expenses are slightly lower, but we have not completed closing out fiscal year 23. Fiscal year 23 will not be closed for at least another week. So these numbers are certainly subject to change, but basically taking a look at where we were at the close of June, we were just under $1 million to the good in terms of revenue. That gets just added to the fund balance. So that just gets added to the cash that's already sitting in the account to pay for the expenses and for the benefits of the Employee Benefits Trust. So there are a couple of items that influence, obviously, how we manage the trust. First, there's a cash reserve requirement. In the trustees charter that was established by the governing board that is managed by the trustees, there is a requirement that the trust must maintain 6 months worth of projected claims, premiums, and expenses at all times. So whatever that value is, approximately $17 million today, we are required to always have at least $17 million for fiscal year 24 sitting in there. If for some reason that balance were to decline below that 6 month projected amount, the trustees have up to 2 years to bring that back up to the minimum. So I know that it has happened in the past. I know that the prior governing boards have made changes to the benefits in order to kind of shore up the cash reserve, but that is one requirement. Now, if it goes over, so if there's at least 8 months or more worth of cash balance sitting in the trust, then the trustees may implement a plan to then reduce it to the 6 month minimum. And the way you could do that is by essentially paying more for the benefits, offsetting some of the cost essentially to the employee's cost of benefits. But I stress the word may. That is not a requirement. Certainly, as a fiduciary, you want to make sure that you're kind of projecting out not just those 8 months, but what we're really taking a look at over the course of a whole benefit year. The second element is a stop loss reimbursement. So the trust has a separate plan that focuses on paying for claims that exceed $1 million. So if somebody, for some unfortunate reason, comes to us with $1 million claim or more on their medical insurance, for example, then the stop loss will kick in at that point. This is really just to protect the assets of the EBT from high cost claims. We haven't had those in recent memory. Correct me if I'm wrong. No. So knock on wood, everybody's staying under $1 million. But that stop loss reimbursement does exist in order to protect the trustees and protect the employees to make sure that we're paying on their claims for their medical needs. Now, this is our current plan contribution strategy. It varies depending on the type of plan and the type of coverage that you've got. So at the top is our PPO plan. It's got a $750 deductible, employees only. The district contributes 85% to the monthly cost of their premiums. The employee contributes 15%. That 85-15 strategy is written in the employee agreements. So if you look at consensus, white collar, supervisory professional, all of the various employee agreements that we have, there's a requirement that says that the district shall cover 85% of single only coverage under the PPO option. So we have to keep that in place. The other ones are essentially managed by the EBT. The trustees then decide based on the recommendations from Valley, based on the recommendations from staff, in regards to what is the feasible amount that the district can contribute and what we believe employees should contribute based on the plan type and their deductible. So as you can see, if you're in a high deductible health plan with a $1,500 deductible, you will contribute 24% of the claims. If you're in a $3,000 deductible, high deductible health plan, you will contribute less than 20% towards your benefits. Outside of this, for those employees who are in a high deductible health plan, we obviously have a health savings account. The district contributes $60 per pay period, regardless of your coverage level. So a total of $1,200 a year in your health savings account to support employees to pay their benefits until they're essentially till their co-insurance kicks in. So if you're in a $1,500 deductible health plan, you can use those $1,200 in addition to whatever you contribute into that account so that you can then pay your claims. Once you exceed $1,500, co-insurance kicks in, and then at that point, the plan begins to pay some of your benefits. Our employees do contribute about an average of $600 annually. So when you look at all of the employees who are enrolled in our high deductible health plans, we're looking at about $30 per pay period. So it varies depending on the employee, but on average, we're looking at about $30 per pay period across the various employees. The medical plan costs. So these are in millions, okay? But I just figured it'd be better to not have a bunch of zeros. But these are in millions. So our total cost in fiscal year 23 for the medical plan was just over $37 million to pay for the benefit plans, the administrative costs, and the claims. In fiscal year 22 to 23, there was an increase to the premiums of 13%, and that's at that point, this was before Valley was on board. At that point, the CBIZ was the group that was actually advising the trustees. They recommended a 12% decrease in the EBT subsidy. That was probably to shore up the cash, the reserve. And there was an increase of 1.3% to the plan cost. So overall, a 13% increase to the cost of the plan. It stayed within those kind of breakouts that you saw in the previous slide. But that's really what caused that increase from $34.5 to $37.1 million from one year to the next. Obviously, the biggest share is borne by the district and less to the employees. From fiscal year 23 to 24, there was an increase that you've approved for 5% to plan costs, but all employees were held harmless for that cost. We used essentially excess fund balance or cash in the trust fund in order to pay that 5% increase to employees. Now, these are the costs. This is the actual cost by plan type per member. This is the average cost. So this is what we would pay when you look at the combined medical, pharmacy, and the fixed expenses, so the administrative costs to manage the plan. You can obviously kind of see what it looks like. Medical claims based on plan type, pharmacy claims based on plan type, and John will talk about kind of what kind of claims we're looking at both in pharmacy and in medical. The average cost loss ratios are definitely something to look at. So, last fiscal year, we were basically paying 127% in claims to the amount of income that was coming in per month. So basically 27 cents more per dollar than we were taking in. Whereas the HDHP plans were on average falling well below the 100%. So you can kind of infer that there is a subsidy of the high deductible health plan contributions to individuals who are participating in the PPO plan. If you look at the high deductible $1,500 to $750, we're almost spending double for a PPO member than we are for an HDHP member. And when I mean member, I mean both employees and anybody who they cover, spouses, partners, children, other dependents. This is just kind of representing it graphically so that you can kind of take a look at what it looked like on the left. What the blue line was last fiscal year, the red line was the prior year, and then what that surplus looked like year over year, or month to month, I should say, in fiscal year 22 versus 23. And you can kind of look at these a little bit closer. I'm not going to necessarily go over them, but it's just to graphically represent how claims moved. And obviously there's an inverse relationship, right? As claims go up, our deficit will continue to decrease, and therefore we'll have a decline, and vice versa. Now, when you break it down for PPO, obviously this is our more expensive plan. There's more precipitous, numbers of claims, and therefore the precipitous deficit is huge because there's not necessarily enough income coming in from those contributions and from the district to necessarily pay for those claims. So then what's happening is you take a look at the high deductible health plans, and they're staying well above average. So they're collecting cash that we're essentially then using to pay for PPO claims and pay for PPO deductibles, or premiums rather. So, same thing with the 3,000 plan. I mean, if you look at these, they're all staying well above zero. Whereas if you look at PPO, I mean, we hit a kind of a net of zero in January of 2022. That was kind of the last time, and ever since then, the PPO side is running a monthly deficit for the fixed cost claims and premiums. So in some of what I've mentioned already, so on average, the monthly deficit in the PPO plan is running just under $486,000, which is then subsidized by the average monthly surplus in the high deductible health plans combined, approximately $415,000. So that net is really what is being covered, and the trust covers the difference. A PPO cost loss ratio is 2/3 greater than the average high deductible claim or cost in the $1,500 deductible, but it's 3 times greater in the $3,000 deductible high deductible health plan. So it's certainly something we want to point out because that is one piece that the trustees and the district have no control over, right? Because that 8515 is cemented into the employee agreements. We have to essentially pay that first and pay everybody last. So in the 5-year financial forecast that you've seen previously, there's currently a 5% inflator for fiscal year 25 that's built in. But the estimate now should be that it should be closer to an 8% inflator. So that difference of 3% is basically an additional need of $1.1 million in order to just cover the cost of whatever the inflationary increase is going to be to the medical plan. And that's just an estimate based on averages. This year, for this plan year, the average was 7, and we stayed well below that 7. So we've kind of been lucky. But in addition to this, we have to take a look at the fact that for the last several years, we've been subsidizing premiums, particularly to employees, and those subsidies are going to run out, right? ESSER is gone. The cash that we use for this year is no longer available because we've now used it to pay for this year's subsidy. But those costs still exist, right? That's a sunk cost that still has to get paid in addition to the forecasted inflation. So that is additional investment that in the long run, the governing board will need to tackle in order to maintain benefits accessible for employees. And I think that is it for me. Yes. Any questions?
Governing board members, any questions on this presentation? Okay. And then, so are we having utilization management presentation? Is there other parts to this presentation tonight? There's other.
Before we transition to employee participation, which will be our HR portion, just a quick note of clarification. Can you just provide the amount of funding that was allocated from the maintenance and operations budget last year to subsidize, and then what's going to be required this year according to the forecast? I know you gave percentages, but I would rather public hear the hard dollar count.
Yeah, in hard dollar. So M&O, I mean, is obviously going to take the biggest hit. I'm trying to remember the number off the top of my head, but it hovers around the $3 to $5 million range for an M&O. So we would need an additional $1 million at this point, based on what we know today, in order to continue the same level of coverage. But we've been providing those subsidies year over year. So the value of those subsidies, which have ranged somewhere in the $2 million neighborhood, would also have to be tacked onto that $1.1 million.
Correct. That's what I wanted to make sure we're clear publicly is that what we subsidized last year, we're responsible for matching, and then any increase would have to be on top of that to make sure that we're doing our best to minimize the impact of increases on our employees.
That's right.
Okay.
Because the cost of the plan is still sunk, right? We're just essentially stacking on the inflation at that point. If for some, heavenly reason we would go the other way, I mean, that would be great, but that's not what we're seeing, right? We're just seeing that continue to stack up. So that is additional investment plus the dollars that no longer exist from all of the subsidies that we've been giving to employees since, the start of the pandemic.
Does everyone understand what that means? I know in previous decisions we've made as a board, we decided to cover the cost of increases, but that increase is still there. So it's going to keep on coming out of our M&O every single year if we're covering the cost, plus whatever future increases happen.
Right, correct. Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening, board, members of the board. Before I get started, let me go ahead and introduce again Tom Elliott, who is our executive director for membership services of Valley School. So he's serves as Valley School serves as our consultant. They are a nonprofit cooperative here in the state of Arizona that works with school districts similar to ours, and they have been with us for the past year, I believe, back I think a year in July. And they will be working with us going forward to help guide us through the next round of benefits packages and procurement, which I'll talk a little bit about in my presentation. If I could also introduce Ms. Carrie Wiley. She's our benefits analyst from our benefits office, and she was good enough to join and support me in this presentation. It comes from, we have a staff, in addition to the EBT, we have a staff that manages enrollment for all members, answers questions, goes to open enrollment, makes sure deductions are made, and troubleshooting along the way. So I just wanted to thank the team for being here. I'm here on behalf of the HR department, which oversees benefits, but also as a member of the EBT, governing board approved to sit on the EBT and help guide some of the and provide input into some of the decisions that are made regarding benefits. Glad to tag team with Ricky on the CFO side. He's going to be the guy helping to make sure that our resources are being spent effectively and managing within our means. From the HR side, we're really concerned to make sure that the benefits package that we offer is an attractive package, is an affordable package, so that we can recruit employees to the district, competing against other districts and other employment opportunities. And then the other issue is to retain our employees. So we're going to be working hand in hand as we go forward to look at next January's benefits package, and then even beyond that as well. So he touched on the financial piece, which is, I think, the really key important part. I want to talk a little bit about benefits enrollment and what benefits are currently offered. I know so there are some new board members who came on just in time to approve the benefits package. So I just want to go over, we offer about 13 different benefits for our employees. Employees who work over 30 hours a week are eligible for benefits, and then so are their spouses, dependent children. So they can participate, and then benefits usually kick in after the 30th day of their employment. We've been discussing the big driver of costs and claims, which are medical and pharmacy. We offer a vision plan. We offer dental coverage. I know Ricky mentioned the HSA, health savings accounts. We also offer flex spending accounts for those who are enrolled in the PPO and want to use funds tax-free to cover some of their medical costs. We offer legal assistance, short-term disability, basic life insurance, supplemental life, critical illness, and then, of course, for those with pets, we've offered pet insurance coverage as well. I also want to mention, aside from the insurance coverage, you also manage a wellness incentive in partnership with the Wellness Council of Arizona, as well as an employee assistance program with the Jorgensen Brooks group. You'll hear about our employee assistance program when employees come to us seeking counseling opportunities due to mental health situations, depression, stress, anxiety. And so that is also something that we help facilitate for our members. These are the current enrollment numbers as of July 2023. So this is where things stand right now with 5,654 total members. And then you can see it broken down by the medical plans that we offer, and then on through the different benefits that you see there. We're looking at we use about 7,500 employees as our total pool of eligible employees. So these are the numbers that you see of that pool that are enrolling in our benefits. And then keep in mind, members are not just the employees, are also the spouses and dependents. So when it gets to the employees, you'll see that in our next slide, how many of our employees actually enroll, because they have to enroll first before their spouses and dependents can take advantage of the benefits as well. So when we look at medical enrollment, so we're focusing on the medical because that's really the cost driver here. So I wanted to kind of share that over the last 4 years, average enrollment in our medical insurance coverage and our pharmacy coverage is just under 4,200 for the last 4 years. So that represents just over half of TUSD employees. I know Dr. Trujillo's asked and challenged us to see how we can, what we can do to get more participation, grow that pool of covered individuals, but that's kind of where we're hovering, right around that 50% range. Total members enrolled are going to be up closer to 5,500, as you can see, and it fluctuates year by year. Half of our members are in the PPO 750 medical plan, and then a third in the high deductible 1,500, and then the remainder in the high deductible 3,000. Wanted to share this because, again, it comes back to how we're covering the costs and how we are assisting employees with the various plans. And so the PPO actually is very attractive to our employees, and at about 50% of our members enrolled in that plan. This is just another way of kind of illustrating it. When we broke it out by medical enrollment for those employees who also have spouses and dependents, if you look at our PPO plan, most of the enrollees in that plan are going to be your employees only. And then as you look at for those who cover their spouses, children, their dependents, you're going to see a higher share in our high deductible plans, more affordable, but again, higher costs that come out of pocket for those plans. What's driving our medical and pharmacy claims at this point, and we continue to go over the medical and pharmacy reports that come from our providers. You can read them here. I mean, they talk about musculoskeletal and circulatory conditions, COVID infections, diabetes, cancer, especially breast cancer. But a lot of the discussion that we were having, there's a lot of underlying conditions that are kind of driving some of these claims. So when you have a COVID infection, it's not necessarily we're talking about just COVID the infection, but the underlying conditions that are exacerbated when somebody has a complicated COVID case. We have a lot of discussion about diabetes as being one of the key drivers. We know that, in Arizona, 1 in 10 of our Arizona residents are diagnosed with diabetes, and about 1 in 3 with prediabetes. That's something that we're going to be focusing on because we're looking at what's driving our claims and trying to construct ways to address those drivers. So we're not just talking about funding insurance and claims, but looking at ways to change the trajectory on those claims. One of the good notes is that with the benefits offered, TUSD members do well with prevention screenings. They're going to get their checkups in advance of any health conditions. So 44.3% of our members do go for their wellness visits, and we want to promote more of that. But that's above the norm. We want to do what we can to ensure that our employees are healthy and doing well. I talked a little bit about the wellness incentive program. So on the flip side of this, we do work with the Wellness Council of Arizona to offer a wellness incentive. I think we're kind of maybe scratching the surface of where we could go with this. But right now we do have anywhere between 500 to 700 employees who participate in our wellness incentive. And what that means is that enrolling in our insurance plans, and then also going through these several steps, making sure that they go see their provider, get their lab results, participate in wellness activities, provide information regarding their health and wellness. All of these activities build up so that when they accomplish a certain set of activities, they get a $300 incentive that goes back to cover the cost of their health insurance. So that's something that has been working here, but we're having discussions about what else we can do to broaden that wellness push across the district and make more of an impact going forward. So this is all going to be leading to a couple of things. Number one is that we are going to be entering the 5th year of our contract with our current medical provider, UMR, and CVS Caremark, which is the pharmacy provider. We're in that 5th year, so that'll take us through the next benefit plan year, which starts July 2024 to June 2025. So our first immediate task is to work to design a benefits plan that hopefully keeps costs from increasing too high. And then, of course, decision about how we manage the employer and the employee share. Those are the decisions that are going to be coming up in January and February. So we're working with Valley Schools and our team to see what we can do today with our current vendors to control costs but still offer attractive benefits. We were hoping to go out for procurement for a new contract early on, and we had talked to Valley Schools about ways to facilitate that. We had thought that we had worked with Valley Schools to see if they would be able to manage the procurement for us because our procurement process might take a little bit longer. We were running under a tight timeline. But those discussions have really indicated that we're going to have to put this procurement out ourselves. So what we're going to do is finish off the 5th year of our contract. But early in the spring, once we get the benefits package for 24-25 approved by the board, we're going to go out for procurement early in the spring so that we can come back with an updated provider for medical and pharmacy, hopefully by October, where the governing board would have to approve that contract, and then the next January come up with a new benefits plan. So competing it out is just another effort to see what's out there in terms of providers, see what improvements to benefit offerings, and hopefully see what kind of strategies that can be implemented to control costs. So getting it out there and competing it out there is going to be a big deal for us. And then, again, once we get into that new vendor, we'll have a new benefits. Not new, it could be the current one, but hopefully with an improved opportunity to compete that out. We'll start with our benefits plan for 2025-26 in January 25, and then be able to implement that for the following school year. So first order of business, benefits plan in January, and then next October, we'll be looking at hopefully finishing the procurement on a new contract. So that's essentially, I guess, easy to summarize. You saw the enrollment numbers and the share in our different plans. looking at the conditions that are driving the cost of claims and our procurement process. So again, our effort at HR is to really try to figure out how to maintain an attractive set of benefits at an affordable rate for our employees. But we're going to have to work hard with our counterparts in finance and the board to make that happen. So I'm happy to take any questions, and we also do have our Valley Schools representative here should you have any questions for them as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Questions, governing board members? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I think you mentioned this, but could you give us like the percentage of employees that are enrolled in our one of our health insurance programs?
So it looks like we're kind of hovering around 50%, a little bit over 50% of our employees are enrolling in our medical plan, and then they can bring their spouses and dependents as well.
Okay, great, 50%, wow. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the wellness incentive, because I was curious about that, because I always see the emails, and I didn't realize that you had to be like a part of our health insurance to, benefit from that money. And so I wonder if we do any sort of incentive or something for our non-insured employees. I know our employees have the opportunity to find health care elsewhere, right? But like, do we collaborate at all with like the health department to just do like screenings for people who may not have health insurance, but to entice them to join our?
No, I think it's a great area of focus and a great idea to work with our partners. So, like I said, we do have an incentive that's in place right now. We've been working with Valley Schools to look at other models for how we can broaden these wellness initiatives. It's not just about the incentive, but we want all of our employees to participate and enjoy healthier lifestyles. So, looking at ways to increase participation across all our schools. So, for instance, we've been talking about what it would take to have wellness champions at each school, so we can have an assurance that every school community has someone there that's coordinating wellness. So the partnerships and other incentives, that's certainly something we can look at as we go forward. And then not just the incentives to participate in healthier lifestyles, but also the information, like what types of information can we provide on a regular basis to consumers so that they, so for instance, I know there's a push to have providers include as a covered benefit, self-education on, basic self-education on diabetes, for instance. So something that if you're enrolled, you can, learn more about these conditions on your own, as well as with your provider. So we'll look more into what we can do on that side. I think as Dr. Trujillo's push is that we can't just look at the claims going up. What can we do on the other side to help encourage healthier lifestyle so that there isn't, we can try to fight the prevalence of these conditions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Shaw, as the ex officio member of our EBT as well. We have a lot of work to do together. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, because I think we have some vacancies, right? So hopefully we could get some participation from the existing members and have some new people join.
Yes, I think we have about 4 members so far. I mean, there are 4 members of the EBT, and I think we probably could use a couple more to really get as much expertise and support as possible.
Go ahead, Ms. Ekstrom.
Hi, thank you for your presentation, and you too, Mr. Hernandez. I appreciate that. Have we ever surveyed our employees to see why they aren't joining our health insurance plan?
No, I looked back to see what kind of feedback we've gotten. I think the last time we did a survey was several years ago when we were changing the open enrollment date. That's all I could find in our records. So we do want to find out. So I think that's a good part of the plan to survey about our benefits. This is part of a retention and employees recruitment and retention strategy. So that's a good idea to do that. We have anecdotal information, so we do get, of course, the conversations about what the cost is going to be and what that means for different categories of employee, and then we do get some anecdotal information about what kinds of benefits people would like to see offered. So recently, we've got people pushing for, can we get more medical advocacy to kind of help us navigate some of these more complicated medical situations. Looking for more mental health, opportunities and so forth. So I think that's we probably should collect it in a more structured manner as we go into our next benefits design effort. The other thing, just to mention, Valley has been very good at also sharing what they're learning from other districts, other similar districts. So we also appreciate that input as well.
I think it's crucial to find out from our employees why they aren't joining our health insurance. And for me, when the county changed, that's my job during the day, when they changed over to a high deductible health plan, we had people come in explaining how that's going to affect your insurance coverage. And I think that's important for people to also be able to learn to see, you know, if it's just me, this is what's going to happen. If it's just me and my spouse or me and my family, I think those are also important details that we have to provide to our employees so that they understand exactly like what's going on.
No, you're right. It's very complicated. And even just knowing that open enrollment is like a critical time, and we don't roll over, and we want to look at that. We don't automatically roll over benefits. So every time there's an open enrollment period, employees have to proactively go in and enroll again. And that's not the case everywhere, but I'll take a look and see if that's something we can do, because you know, there's always going to be people who forget, and don't do it, and don't prioritize it, and we have to come back and help them find options. But that's, you know, certainly something we can look at as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. And, you know, we don't usually talk about our employees. We don't bring the presentation about EBT and our employees' benefits to the governing board this early in previous years. And the reason why we're here today talking about it so early in the school year before decisions have to be made is because I think a lot of us really agree that we're at a very critical point in terms of our benefits, not just in TUSD. I think this is a countrywide issue, but definitely how it affects us in TUSD. You know, we have a couple of options that we need to start conversing about as a governing board, not just amongst ourselves and the 5 of us here, and not just with our staff, but making sure that we bring, you know, our not just the leaders, but our staff and our teachers and our frontline individuals. And I see our TEA union president here in the audience, and thank you for being here, because that's going to be a really important partner in this process. But we have a couple of options. We can just go as is and continue moving forward as we're doing. Where costs keep on increasing year after year, more than inflation, and definitely more than what the state of Arizona is spending, and their spending increases year after year, and costs are going up for health insurance much more than that. And we have sicker staff and community with our current sick care system that's going to actually take care of our patients, of our staff in the way that we know they need to. And with those increased costs, we can either pass those costs on to our employees, which I know that none of us here want to do, or keep on absorbing it in our M&O budget, you know, millions and millions of dollars. This is going to just continue increasing. Right now, we're at, what, $1.5 million or $2 million. Then it'll be $3 million out of our M&O that we're using to cover the increase of our benefits costs. We don't want to push it onto our employees using the benefits. And that means that we have less money in our M&O to spend on students and more staff and other needs of our district. And that's a concern that we need to really address. And we need to, I think, really address some other options and think outside the box. And I know we've had these conversations over the last year. You know, we're in a very unique position as a district. You know, we're a large district with, you know, potentially 7,000 individuals plus their staff members or family members, that can enroll. This is very different than even private companies that have a few thousand that, you know, are beholden to insurance and what's out there in the marketplace. We're self-insured. That means we can do, you know, we get the money in ourselves, we get the money out ourselves. That's what our EBT will helps us support. We're self-insured, and we can do things that are really outside the mainstream in terms of our normal insurance marketplace that we have. We can really start putting together systems in place where when we pay providers of healthcare, like myself as a family physician, like all of our partners, Banner, TMC, El Rio, Marana Healthcare, so many of the other individuals and companies and organizations in our community that provide care to our employees and staff, we can continue paying them just for fee for service like we are doing right now. Every time you see a patient, every time you do a procedure, you get paid, regardless of what the outcomes are. Or we can start paying for actually taking care and providing care and having better outcomes, having healthier staff and employees that are coming to school more often, using less sick days, having healthier family members and better mental health services, and really looking at a different model, like an ACO or accountable care organization or some kind of other model that can really do this differently. You know, we've started having some conversations this spring. We've talked to the CEO of El Rio and the CMO of El Rio. We've talked to P3 that does a lot of this work in providing partnerships and collaborative models to really build these contracts that are different. And we need to start getting more involved and I think engaged. It's going to be not a next year project, but a really long-term, multi-year project to start looking at different models, getting outside the PPO and HSA realm, but into this well care system of, we're providing care, but we're actually getting more care coordinators, more nutrition staff, more other people that aren't paid in our traditional healthcare fee-for-service model when you only get paid for seeing a doctor or the nurse practitioner, but really getting all these other people involved in healthcare to really take better care of our diabetic patients that are costing more than others because they're having more costs, more foot amputations, more heart disease, more expensive medications and other kinds of sequelae of the disease. And so we've started this process, and I wonder where we are in this process, because I think this is going to be a long-term solution to really address this in a way that's really unique and different. And again, hopefully bringing the employee groups and our staff and employees on board to do something different, to really take care of our staff in a way that we're not doing currently, or no one is really doing in America currently.
And so we have had those conversations, and we've been, and again, working with Valley to kind of do some, I guess, testing of the model, looking at what models might exist elsewhere. We asked them to look at the pros and cons so they could give advice to the EBT and to the board as well. But you're right that it's not going to necessarily be a January issue. Something we want to look at as we prepare for the procurement, so that when we go out for proposals, we're looking at a design that might maybe incorporate some of those ideas at that time. So maybe as we head into the spring, between now and then, coming along with ideas for how we might move in that direction. I don't know if you want to hear more from our experts on what they've done so far in looking at the.
President Shaw, members of the board, Dr. Trujillo, thanks for having me here tonight. I enjoyed Mr. Robles, and I enjoyed the students and musicians. It was great. We've had some preliminary talks. We met, I think, in May, had a Zoom meeting to talk about that. I've looked at ACOs. I understand what they are, and you're right, it is a sick care system, and it's getting around that. And it's the ACOs basically incentivize those providers to do that and can control cost. We haven't gotten that far because there's some issues when you start narrowing down your employees' choices. People like to have choices on their care, and when you start looking at narrowing those things, sometimes the employees aren't thrilled with that idea. Maybe they have to change providers. So those are some of the things we'll have to look at. But if ACO is the direction that we want to actively pursue, then that we can do. We've looked, there's I think 3 ACOs serving the Tucson area right now. That's something we can look at in the long term for, as Mr. Fernandez not said, maybe next year, but the following year, and build to it. But it's a way to do it. It's a way to reduce costs. Getting everybody in the same plan is probably the most important way to accomplish that, because when you just add it, it's a cheaper plan, or you incentivize it to get there, generally the healthier people go there. So you kind of got to get everybody on board to see a dramatic change in cost. And even when you bring that number down, healthcare continues to trend at X. But getting people healthier, getting them less sick days, more at work is the way to go. And a well-pointed wellness program won't hurt that either.
Right, I appreciate you bringing up the sacrifice, because it's not just we create another plan and then everyone's happy. It's going to be a lot of sacrifice, a lot of limited choices. There might be a hospital system in Tucson that doesn't want to be paid except for fee for service. We only want to get paid every time a patient comes in our doors and goes to the ER and gets admitted with infections and heart disease and other things. And there might be other hospital systems that say, no, we want to be part of this and keep patients healthy and keep them out of the hospital. Because right now, to be blunt, I get paid every time a patient comes and sees me, regardless of what happens. If they get sicker, I get paid more because as a doctor, as a healthcare system, this is how it works. Every time a patient gets sicker, we are incentivized perversely to get more money every time a patient is sicker. And that's how hospitals are paid. Every time our sicker community means more money for the hospitals. And that's a really, really messed up system. And that's what's evolved over the last 100 years in American healthcare. And so this is why the conversations need to be had early, and really making sure we bring in our stakeholders, because we might be, to do better and to keep our staff and family members healthier and reduce costs. It might be limiting networks to folks who are actually willing to work within a framework of healthcare as opposed to sick care. and other things. And can you talk about who's on our EBT right now? Like who's on? We only have 4 members on our Employees Benefit Trust.
We have Mark Mansfield, our chair. We have Renee Heuser, who is my predecessor in HR, and then I think Lauren Shedd is a third member, and then myself. So there's 4 of us.
Okay. And are we getting employee groups? Are we getting like other people? Because I think we need to either revamp or rethink what our EBT is. And I know the purpose of the EBT is to really, their benefits trust. We're making sure that money in, money out, making recommendations are all done appropriately. But I think if we just keep that model, we're just going to be where we're at and have increased costs and have less money for M&O or more costs onto our employees. So I think it's time for us to reimagine what our EBT is and making sure we have all the stakeholders on board, especially our employee groups, because they're the ones most affected by any changes that are made to our benefits.
No, I'm happy to bring that back to the EBT. Our next meeting is in September. I was able to attend one meeting. And then we had our summer of discussions and looking at what we were going to do this year. So when we come back, and prior to that, I'll do some more legwork on whether there are any prospects for membership that we can bring to the board. And I don't know how it's usually worked with employee groups, but I'm happy to work with our employee relations folks and the employee groups to determine how best to incorporate them into that process. So for sure, when the benefits package comes out, it's something that we're going to want to share what that looks like. And then, as we get towards procurement, we'll figure out the right way to get input. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely.
Right. I don't know the charter offhand, but I can imagine something in the charter that would preclude, or maybe there is something in the charter that includes like current employees from serving on that, and it might need to be updated because they are the most affected by any changes.
So statute, which allowed you to create the trust, only allows you to have 1 employee and 1 board member on the trust. Okay. Which you currently have. You have Ms. Shaw and Mr. Fernandez. Mm-hmm. So. Doesn't mean that you can't have employee groups as advisors. They just wouldn't be able to participate as trustees.
Okay, so they can't be part of the EBT, but we need to create something different for them to have input into that process and to really start looking into options. Okay. It's going to be like a subcommittee EBT, or is it going to be a separate kind of committee, or would it need to work statutorily to be legitimate?
I don't know if they can be a subcommittee of the EBT, just because the EBT is specifically outlined in statute, and your trust documents are really what govern it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm hearing another task force on our hands here.
No.
I'm the king of task force, so let's talk about that. Yes, Mr. Ross.
There is, thank you. There is there's supposed to be an employee group of the employee, of all the employee groups that are a committee for benefits purposes, and that has not been active, I don't think, for.
And Ms. Miss is here, I think, to probably talk about that as well. Yeah.
May I approach? Thank you. President Shaw, yes, there's in the agreements, there's a standing insurance group, and last year Renee Heuser had organized it. It was before Mr. Fernandez was here, and it has representatives from the different employee groups on there. So maybe it's just making that, it hasn't gotten started for this year yet, but getting that rocking and rolling again. It's very important.
Thank you. And I didn't mean to hijack the meeting tonight. I know this is really, it's on my mind a lot in terms of where these benefits are going and all these costs are going, and just want to make sure that had a chance for it to come to our governing board for us to discuss. And I'll turn it back to my governing board members for any other questions, feedback, or discussion on this point. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I'm glad that you brought up the drawbacks of our healthcare system, or as you say, a sick care system. And when I missed the cutoff for my job's healthcare, and so then I was looking at our TUSD healthcare packages, and I really could not afford them. And so I'm sure many employees that we have also can't afford what we offer them. And so I really hope that we can find one that works for everyone, and no matter how much they get paid, that we have an affordable one and one that leans towards wellness instead of sick care. And also, I think we should, if that task force hasn't been started for this year for the EBT committee, let's get that moving, because I think that's an important perspective.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Governing Board. Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, just as a wrap, though this item requires no action, our big goal here was just to make sure that in this public space, we just want to make sure that there's three big understandings coming out of this informational session. Number one, it's going to take a decision whether or not this board is going to go down the road of subsidies again. If so, it's going to cost anywhere north of $5 million to match what was invested last year and projected increases. We just want to make sure you're thinking about that as budget season is not far as it comes up this fall. Secondly, that the extent to which that the HDHP $1,500 deductible and HDHP $3,000 deductible plans, the extent to which that they generate savings for the district, we have to turn around and invest those savings into subsidizing the PPO $750 deductible plan. That's just there as a piece of information in terms of this governing board to consider. And lastly, the biggest thing is that we have a lot of work to do with a participation rate that's hovering around 50%. To be creative and outside the box, things get easier when you just, quite simply, it's just a math problem. The more employees that opt into our employee benefits, the easier it is for us to manage costs. And that's just something that we're going to have to work together on. So those are just kind of our three big takeaways that we want to make sure that the board comes away with after this presentation.
Great, thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Thank you for your presentations this evening. All right. Okay, so we tackled that big topic. We're going to go back to our consent agenda now. Number 6, consent agenda, Dr. Trujillo.
Members of the governing board, we want to recommend for the board's consideration the approval of the consent agenda, item 6.2 to 6.5 as arranged.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Governing board members, are there any items that you'd like any clarification on or any questions answered?
I do, actually.
Ms. Luna Rose, go ahead.
Item 6.4.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more clarification on this Guadalupana lab, exactly what that meant for Lenuquides community.
Yeah, so I'll do two things. Number one, I'll welcome our administrative point person for leasing and sales and rentals of district properties. I'll answer the question just kind of conceptually. Having a preschool opportunity out there at Lenuquides is not something we've been able to accomplish in-house yet, either through the PEEPS program or through tuition-based. But having this outside group come on in and offer the preschool, number one, gives access to an area of the district that it's a little bit of a gap. It'll provide need, or it'll address a need. And then secondly, just to be frank, it's a great opportunity to recruit kindergartners for Lenuquides to help meet their enrollment goals. In terms of any of the details regarding the agreement, I'll ask Mr. Nodine to step forward if there's any questions there.
President Shaw, members of the board. The benefit for Lenuquides is the enrollment potential. It's also that they get 60% of the funds, so they get about a little over $20,000 a year once this gets rolling. And so that's why the principal is really excited about it and working with me to make it happen as quickly as possible.
Does that answer your questions, Ms. Luna Rose? Any other questions or anything else? Mr. Romero.
Real quick on 6.2 on the review, did we have any reviews online or in person on those?
Mr. Ronda, okay.
Welcome our Senior Director for Curriculum, Heidi Aranda.
Good evening, Governing Board. We had 5 reviews, 5 comments, 2 parents, 2 teachers, and 1 student this time. And the average score was 4 out of 5 on the rating. So there were 3 highly effective ratings, which is a 5. And then 1 person rated it a 3, and 1 person rated it a 2. So
Were there any comments on it or just ratings?
only the student was the only one, and the comment was yes. So
Direct to the point. All right. All right. Thank you.
uh-huh.
Thanks. Great. Government members, are there any items to extract tonight from our consent calendar? All right, so I'll move items 6.2 to 6.5.
I'll second.
All right, item moved by myself and seconded by Ms. Luna Rose. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to our action items, and we have some great new staff leaders or staff members in new leadership roles in our district.
Board members, yes, tonight is an opportunity to welcome 2 more outstanding leaders to the district administrative team. We begin first with our recommendation to fill the position of Director for Family and Community Engagement. Tonight's recommendation has been with the district since 2007 and has a teaching and learning lens. She spent several years as a learning supports coordinator, and of course, one of the most important positions that we have right now is reading specialist, which she did very well for us for a number of years. Also served as a student success specialist in the African American Student Services Department for a number of years, but it is as a coordinator for family and community resources at our family resource centers where she has found a home, and she has been since 2016 as one of our outstanding administrative contact persons running our family resource centers. Tonight, she is our recommendation to serve as the next Director for Family and Community Engagement. I'd like to recommend Ms. Lacey Grijalva for governing board consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Governing board members.
Dr. Shaw,
Ms. Ekstrom.
I would move to approve Lacey Grijalva as the Director of Family and Community Engagement.
I'll second.
All right, motion is made by Ms. Ekstrom and seconded by Ms. Shaw. Any further comment or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Congratulations, Ms. Grijalva.
I will be brief because I know everybody is excited to move on to this board meeting, but board members, Dr. Trujillo, district leadership, district staff, families, students, this will be one of my greatest honors to stand up here and accept this position as Director of Family Community Engagement. Rather than tell you what an amazing job I plan to do, I believe in the phrase, actions speak louder than words. So with a huge family support and friends who support me personally, and an amazing FACE team, together we are ready to take family and community engagement in TUSD to the next level. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we won't let you down.
Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, and our next recommendation also has been with the district for a number of years. Prior to that, almost 20 years working in the Vail School District as a social studies educator, taught economics and sociology, but it is here at TUSD where she has found her passion. Currently serves as a technology integration specialist on the ground with teachers, training them, supporting them, and modeling cutting-edge technologies for use in the classroom. She's led countless professional development sessions, is one of our most highly touted professional developers in the world of technology education, and one of the most requested by our teachers. And tonight, she is going to be recommended to fill the position for the Director for Instructional Technology and Online Education, Mrs. Tracy Rowley. I'd like to recommend.
Governing board members.
Dr. Shaw, I would like to move Ms. Tracy Rowley to serve as the Senior Director of Information Technology and Online Instruction.
Second.
All right, item is moved by Ms. Luna Rose and seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. Any further comment or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Ms. Rowley, congratulations.
I've been practicing and now I don't even know what to say. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, Dr. Shaw, governing board members. I'm so honored to be standing up in here in front of you. I never would have guessed even a few months ago that I would be in this position. Thank you for approving my appointment to be the Senior Director of Instructional Technology and Online Education. I'd like to thank Judy Mitchell, who is the principal from Mary Meredith, who was one of my references, and she's come and sat here through all of this just for me, and I really appreciate it. I am excited to take on this role by focusing on the needs of our stakeholders, including the parents, students, staff, and teachers, by fostering collaboration and innovation to make a positive impact on our school district's journey in this ever-changing environment. Thank you so much for your confidence, and thank you for your vote.
So excited about the new amazing leadership we have in our district. I'm going to have us do a 5-minute break for photos with our new staff leaders.
Yes, let's bring up our two newest district administrators for a photo opportunity with our governing board.
check your calendar?
Oh.
Where's everyone?
3:30 on Thursday?
Yes.
The 24th?
This Thursday, yes. Okay, we made midtown there.
Okay.
Where's everyone?
They're outside.
Get in here. We need an order. Where is everyone? It's a midtown diner in the corner. Around the corner from here.
There is?
That complex run around the corner is a vegan diner with a corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Are we live again? Kevin, are we good? Okay, we're going to get started with our continuing through our agenda here. Okay. All right, we're going to item 7.3, recommendation of appointment of members to the Tucson Unified School District Audit Committee. Dr. Trio.
Yes, President Shaw, members of the governing board. Tonight, we are asking the governing board to fill the one existing vacancy. There's one existing vacancy right now in the audit committee, and that vacancy will begin on, will start on August 31st, and will serve a 4-year term. So we want to make sure that we fill this immediate vacancy right now. So we are going to recommend Mr. Blackshire to serve as the audit committee, the newest member of the audit committee, John Cecil Blackshire Jr., co-founder of Corporate Compliance Seminars and founder and president of Accountware Group. OCS provides over 90 CPE training courses for internal and financial auditors, very, very well versed in the auditing and the financial practices of large organizations. So tonight, John Cecil Blackshire is the recommendation to fill the immediate vacancy.
So this is a vacancy open currently. There's another vacancy coming up in a few weeks, and we'll revisit that one.
There will be another vacancy coming up in a few weeks, and the board will reassess and examine candidates for that vacancy at that time.
Great, thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept the Mr. Blackshire from the audit committee's recommendation.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you. And Mr. Blackshire, thank you for volunteering and for your service to our audit committee. All right, we're going to move on to item 7.4, consideration of class action settlement with Altria Group Incorporated. Dr. Trujillo.
I will turn it over to our general counsel, Mr. Ross, to lead us through this item.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, and good evening, board members. The board has received some executive session legal advice on this. Basically, this is a proposed settlement in the class action lawsuit against Juul and their corporate partners. This particular settlement is with Altria, which is also Philip Morris Company. The board previously approved a settlement with the Juul folks for a little over $10 million. This is $3.2 million with the Altria group. And that's gross. There would be, of course, attorney's fees that would come out of that. The plan for this $3.2 million in terms of payment would be sometime in the next 4 or 5 months, all in one payment. And this would wrap up. This settlement would wrap up the litigation with Juul.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Governing board members. So I'm really proud of this governing board. You know, this is really great for this money to come into our district. I think after attorney fees between this and the Juul settlement, about $9.2 million. And I'm really proud of this board for really dedicating and ensuring that we're going to be using these funds to really meet addiction and other mental health needs for our students with the creation of the task force that we hopefully start meeting this fall and making recommendations to our administration on how we can use these monies, both the settlement agreements, including the one if we approve it tonight, to really make an impact for our students over the next number of years to address addiction, address mental health, address prevention, treatment, and other kinds of things that we can do so that our students are healthier and are ready to learn and grow, which is the purpose of what we are here for as a school district. So I'm really happy that we have committed to that as a governing board, and I will happily move this item tonight.
I will second.
Any other discussion, governing board members? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. And thank you, Mr. Ross, and kudos to Mr. Ross and your legal team. The reason that our settlement portion is as high as it is because of years of dedicated work, many hours of work on being one of the lead plaintiffs or bellwether cases in this. We would have been, I think, probably a couple hundred thousand and not $9.2 million if it wasn't for all the hard work of Mr. Ross, you and your team, and so many other district leaders and staff that really helped support this.
Yes, I was going to say the site leadership and district leadership that participated in depositions, including Dr. Trujillo, were instrumental in having that greater share of this settlement.
All right, thank you. So we have items 7.5 through 7.8, Dr. Trujillo. Review, approve, and adopt of agreements with our bargaining units.
Yes, for items 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, and 7.8, I'm going to ask, and even 7.9, I'm going to ask our Director for Employee Relations to lead us through tonight's consideration of our employee consensus agreements. And I know our new president, Mr. Jim Byrne, will definitely be a part of item 7.7, 7.8, and 7.9 when we do the pay for performance. Ms. Mesa.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, President Shaw, Board Clerk Romero, governing board members. We're here today to present the employee agreements for this school year. What you're going to hear throughout the items is that much of what you're going to hear is a memorialization of what was already approved by the board in May and June. In May, the board approved compensation changes to salary schedules that went into effect July 1. What this did was make sure all of that was included in the agreements. So the first agreement coming forward is going to be the Eli agreement. This agreement has our principals, assistant principals, research project managers, and psychologists. And for all the agreements, we updated union dues language, and also we adjusted according to the board directives that occurred previously. Stacy Gist is the president of Eli, and she has approved this. She's signed off on it. I have her signature, and we are asking for approval of the Eli agreement.
Can we take 7.5 to 7.8 together? Or do we need to do them separately?
Up to the board if you want to combine items.
Any objection? Just all the agreements, 7.5 to 7.8. Ms. Shaw.
I'd like to give the new president the opportunity to speak if he so chooses.
Right. I know she's more in a presentation as well, right? And we can hear from Mr. Byrne.
Correct.
Yeah, great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Shaw. Okay.
All right, the next agreement will be the TEA agreement, and this one, I'm going to see what comes up first, if it's going to be the consensus or white collar. But here, co-presenting is the new president of TEA, and he also served on the negotiation team last year. So I'd like to introduce Jim Byrne, and if you want to say any words on how on moving forward with the consensus agreement, and if you have any concerns with what we've agreed to thus far.
Not in the midnight hour. Dr. Trujillo, board members, thank you so much for the opportunity. We found a lot of unity with the district on these points moving forward. A number of job classifications, improving the salary schedules, including new people and different salary schedules that are improvements. In just cleaning up the language and things like that. So we approved this, and the Tucson members, Tucson Education Association members, approved this within the last week. So we move forward. Thank you.
And I would like to add that when we came forward in May, we brought forth agreements regarding salary schedules, positions, and also the extra duty salary schedule. So there were changes that were made at that time. The year prior, there had been changes to a lot of coaching stipends, and this last year there was a special emphasis on fine art. So each year looking at groups to see where we can really address need and make sure that it is marketable in the areas. So we are asking for approval of the TEA consensus agreement.
I'll move the item.
Are we taking all of them together? So you,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, all of them. All
And
right.
and we're also requesting approval of the white collar food service agreement. There will be an MOA forthcoming regarding professional development. It was agreed to already by the parties, but there's a dollar attached to it. It'll be coming forward regarding white collar food service PD. We're also requesting approval of the non-bargaining agreement. And as I stated in May, the CWA and AFSCME agreements, they're 2-year agreements, so they we're not coming forward with those, but we will be back with them in June.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Mesa. Sorry, I was trying to save us time and be more efficient, but all together, but I think I made it longer for the confusion. But Ms. Luna Rose, you wanted to make a motion for these items?
Yes, I would like to move to approve items 7.5 through 7.9. I'm sorry, 7.6 through 7.9.
7.5 through 7.8.
7.8, okay. Sorry, there's too many 7 points. So
Right,
yes.
so we have the Eli agreement, the non-bargaining employees agreement, the TEA agreement, and the TEA white collar and
Yes.
food services agreement.
Yes, I would like to move those.
Okay, I'll second that. All right, any other discussion or comments or feedback from our governing board members? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you. All right. Mr. Barney, you staying at the dais for our 305 or 301 one?
Yes.
Okay. Right, and we're going to turn over to item 7.9 to review our compensation plan for Prop 301.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the board has already approved allocation towards the performance pay plan. What it is this committee works together to discuss really what the parameters are to receive this money. I want to first recognize the committee that met in the spring. You'll notice that Jim Byrne is on the committee, but listed as high school teacher because at the time he was not a TA president, but Margaret Cheney was, and we worked very closely to finalize this matter. It did go to vote at the beginning of August because the requirement, it has to be voted upon by eligible employees, and the eligible employees are started in August, and we wanted to make sure we captured the people that were truly benefiting from this plan. What we're going to see this year is a slight increase on what someone can receive for performance pay. Last year, the maximum amount was $1,450 total, and it's broken up into 2 payments. I can explain it here. But the total last year was $1,450. This year, it's $1,520. This is the total possible. In order to receive the initial amount of $1,000, all that needs to be done is they need to be employed by November 1st, working within the TDRA salary schedule, and complete 6 PLC hours. And then that's $1,000, and that gets paid usually the first paycheck in May. Then the next payment is based on the valuation score, and you'll see if you're distinguished, you'd be looking at $520 paid out to you, and then it's allocated as such by where you fall on your evaluation score. So what we did is we met last spring, we sent it out to vote in August, and we did reach the requirement is that we reach 70% yes of eligible voters. We did get that. That is needed to be updated. So we did reach the 72%, and that will fall on my office. I apologize. I avow that we reached the 70%. I believe it was about 71, 72%. If you're wondering, just to give you, I wanted to give the board a snapshot of what's occurred in the past. Usually, this is not the most difficult vote to get. A lot of people understand it. They know we need the participation in the vote, and it's very heavy on the side of yes. These are years prior, and this was these years. Okay, so the percentage approval was 72%, so it was updated on this slide. So as you can see, this is pretty par for the course to have a lot of yeses and very few nos on the vote. So to us, it was a overwhelming yes vote, and we are asking for approval as it was voted on by our teachers and counselors.
Any questions or comments, governing board members? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Just a question. Do we know for those very small percentage of people who said no, do we know why?
We have some emails from people, they're anecdotal. I know we got one where one said, why does national board get it when I have a doctorate and that's harder? You know, this is what the email said, that it's more difficult to get, and then, but we know that is covered in the consensus agreement. So maybe just saying like, why does a facilitator get this, but I do this? So we that was the most recent email I can think of that we received. But usually they're very rare to get a reason why no, because it's just a simple yes, no vote.
Mr. Byrne, do you have any thought on that?
Yeah, I think looking at the yes, no, I mean, there's the 72%, which is the percentage of what they need to clear in terms of who participates in the vote. But then the vote yes is very high. I haven't heard outside of, folks not quite understanding the parameters of what it takes to qualify for 301. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard any of these kind of, outside of something like that, a no as to why this dollar amount or the structure having it pay out in this way. I think we're the only district and who's worked with their local association to get the percentage and the amount more on the side of qualifying by taking your PLC hours and really downplaying the amount paid out according to evaluations and things like that. And that's because that's what we've heard, that a lot of people want to be able to better qualify for those things and kind of reduce the stress of having to knock it out of the park with that one observation and evaluation that occurs throughout the year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you, and thank you for all of your work, both of you.
Thank you.
Okay. And so we have two study action items tonight. First one, 8.1, TUSD Budget Advisory Committee priorities for school year 23-24. Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, President Shaw, members of the governing board. Obviously, all of our board-appointed committees just do incredible work. But one that has probably the most time-sensitive and urgent work is Budget Advisory Committee. They are charged with researching and making recommendations around the expenditure priorities that you set. And as an administration, tonight we're going to bring forward consideration for the governing board to assign the Budget Advisory Committee 3 big expenditure priorities to take a look at, as we feel that these are going to be 3 of the most consequential expenditure areas in the upcoming fiscal year. Here to walk us through and assist is our Chief Financial Officer, Ricardo Hernandez.
Good evening again, board members. So as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, these just a quick overview on priority areas and what the priority areas that we'd like to recommend to you for the fiscal year 24. Just a quick overview, because I know we've got a couple of new board members who weren't here when some of this work started. So the governing board established the BAC in February of 2021. It currently has 12 members, voting members, and 1 board liaison. Ms. Natalie Luna Rose is the liaison this year. Its work is really to evaluate budget priorities for the board. It works with both internal and external stakeholders to make sure that we look at prioritization of resources based on some of those priorities that you established. The board usually assigns anywhere between 3 and 4 priorities to the committee to review, vet, and then provide recommendations as an outcome presentation, usually in the early part of the spring. This is the makeup of the current committee. We've got a diverse group of individuals from all kinds of sectors across the district who participate actively, and we are currently reaching out to all of them to make sure that they continue to be interested in participating in the committee. Obviously, if we have any individuals who choose not to participate, we will inform the board in the event that you all want to make sure that you fill those vacancies. Jason Freed is the current chair of the BAC, and I've spoken to him, and he's excited to get the work started whenever the board is ready. So this is just a quick list of previous priorities. In fiscal year 22, at the time when I was the chair of BAC in 22, these are the 5 priorities that were assigned: class sizes, $15 minimum wage, ESSER-funded positions, DSEG funding, and employee compensation. The DSEG funding piece actually did not get discussed for the mere fact that it overlapped at the time when the district was working on getting out of essentially from under court supervision, and so we didn't want to actually skew any of that work until that process was completed. But a lot of these, particularly the minimum wage, the compensation piece, and the ESSER-funded pieces actually became actionable items that we implemented in the following fiscal year. In fiscal year 23, last fiscal year, the focus was around literacy and language proficiency, again, the ESSER-funded positions, the sustainability of TUVA, and capital funding. So of those, certainly, TUVA is now a standalone school. Capital funding, we currently have a bond election coming up here in the next 2 months. And you have all approved a roadmap for ESSER-funded positions. So a lot of these priorities have become actionable not only by the district, but by the governing board. So in talking with Dr. Trujillo, these are currently the recommended priorities for fiscal year 24. Formula ratios. So this is something that John Fernandez and I are working on internally, but we would like the BAC to work on safety-related positions specifically. Campus monitors, school safety officers, the custodians, and our counselors, and taking a look at how we currently fund those, what the current formula is, what their priorities should be, and essentially kind of what the budgeting priorities should be behind these kind of safety-related positions. I mean, this list isn't necessarily exhaustive, but those are the ones that certainly come to mind. Now that we're out from under court supervision, desegregation reallocations, and focusing on existing programs and new priorities, right? Doing what we currently do, the board now has the full authority to review the department or the staff's recommendations on realigning programs, priorities, and the dollars that go with them. And what could those be? What should those be, if any? And then last but not least, employee benefits, and really taking a look at financial sustainability and the feasibility of it. So it's really not focusing on the plan per se, but focusing on the dollars and cents behind it, and what kind of investment should we be looking for, so that as we start the work of designing employee benefits, going out for an RFP next spring, those kind of can dovetail into one another. So those are the 3 major recommended priorities that we've established. Generally, the timeline is we would have started by now. They generally start, the BAC usually starts in August, kind of gets their priorities straight before they get it, kick into the work. And they're usually done by December, January, with a recommendation to you by late January, early February. So, and I don't know if you have questions or additional priorities.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. And can you go up to the slide of members? And so when we have a list of names, it's hard to really kind of understand who's on these committees. But I just want to just point out we have some amazing members. We have business leaders coming to us. We have our union leaders coming to us in here with Mr. Freed and Ms. Gist. And we have teachers. We have administrators in our district. We have community members representing our tribal communities and other communities. We have a really, really diverse, great set of voices here that are really helping direct the work that we're doing. And I think that, over the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of really great recommendations come from the BAC that have helped not just guide our decisions, nothing is you have to do this, but it really helps guide us in terms of people vetting this. But I think more importantly, really help guide our staff. The staff comes to the BAC with presentations and a lot of questions being asked. And by the time it gets to us and things are ready for prime time, they've already had the recommendations vetted. They've already had a lot of conversations about these issues. And so by the time it comes to us in the winter and spring to really funnel into or drive into the budget, we come, really well-polished presentations and well-polished recommendations that we can, I think, get behind a lot easier because they've been vetted by so many people. So I'm excited about the 3 areas recommended. The formula ratios is something we talk about often. We hear a call to the audience. We talk about it as a governing board many times, some of the issues of our formula ratios and whether they make sense. So really having a good cost-benefit analysis as vetted through the BAC to come back to us and what these formula ratios should look like. And as we get out of court supervision and we look at how we spend our DSEG fundings and some of the reallocations, and of course the conversations earlier and getting even more eyes and ears onto the employee benefit trust is going to, our employee benefits and how we do the long term is really important. I want to make another priority, a recommendation tonight on sustainability. I know Mr. Young, thank you for joining us here, has taken kind of the bull by the horns with some requests to look into sustainability in our district, looking at electrification of our fleet in terms of how we can be more green and be more carbon neutral, and having the BAC looking at some recommendations coming from staff. And then coming back to us with saying, well, what's financially feasible? We win the bond or don't win the bond, and we have different sources of capital funding come to us on construction or other things we need to do. How can we do that more sustainably, and how we can really build a greener district so that we have less of a carbon footprint for the next generation. So I'd love to have the BAC, work with Mr. Young and the work that you're doing and our administration leadership to really vet some of these proposals and come to us with a cost-benefit analysis so we can really see what's worth doing to really help reduce our carbon footprints. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. So is sustainability one of the recommended priorities? Because I don't see it here.
No, that's one additional priority. I'd like to also add that as a fourth priority in addition to the 3 priorities. Can you go back one slide?
Sure.
So we have the 3 priorities recommended by administration. I'm very supportive of these 3, but I would love to add sustainability as a 4th priority. And this is something that, do these first. We've always ended BAC in December, January, but some sustainability can be a long-term project that can go into the winter time. Not really driving into the budget next year, but driving long-term conversations of budget. So I think a January, February conversation and some vetting on that topic would be really apt for the BAC to look into if the governing board agrees with that tonight. Mr. Romero.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I guess the biggest word on that is electrification, within our district. We're not capable of supporting anything like that on a large scale level, I don't believe. And I'd have to turn to counsel and guidance on that to see how feasible that is. And I guess if we are going to do some type of analysis on that, that's going to have to be a pretty thorough analysis, going into that, because it would affect a lot of moving parts, I think, within our district. And then just for me, I know visiting a lot of these schools, I know a lot of the MTSS funding has come out of ESSER dollars. Is this something we can look at? Because I've seen these programs with these administration and teachers and visiting with them to maintain these, because this has helped our K through 3 grades, especially on there. And, again, focusing on the students, I want to make sure that if there's something out there for that, or if this is something we can also look at as an additional priority.
I know we looked at last year when I was the board liaison to the BAC, we did look at all the ESSER funded positions and have a plan of attack for, I think, a significant portion of them that were the most evidence-based. So that was actually addressed, including a lot of discussion on MTSS quaternions in the last cycle. And I know there's recommendations that have been made and are being implemented.
Yeah, we're currently working through that as part of the ESSER positions that we looked at over the last 2 years, MTSS is being among them. Taking a look at how we sustain those positions, kind of those academic loss positions, if you will, beyond the life of ESSER, and what those dollars will look like. So we're looking at, all of it, and that's an analysis that's been ongoing for the last several months. We just currently don't have a solution at this point, but we certainly will have a solution by the time the FY25 budget planning rolls around.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes. Have we talked about how we're going to implement PE and music in every school? Because I know not every school has that.
We haven't talked about PE and music in every
And
school.
art.
I believe every school does have art and music, and that's something that we approved
Not
in
every
previous.
school. Not every school.
It's a floating art teacher in some schools.
That is correct, Governing Board Member Shaw, that we have a lot of schools that they they don't get daily access to art and PE, but they do receive it on a rotation basis according to floating teachers, or teachers that have to serve 2 or 3 schools depending on the day of the week.
We do fund several positions to the Fine Arts Department through the third bucket in Classroom Site Fund in order to provide that.
I know, for example, at Ochoa, they don't have an art teacher, so they have a monitor that's teaching art with a real teacher. So that's not a funded position. Right. So I beg to differ.
Is that a funding issue, or is that is that an open position issue?
No, it's a budget issue.
We can certainly add it. I mean,
yeah, we can certainly add that. I know currently we have 56, I believe, FTE full-time teachers that are funded through the appropriate expenditure category coming out of Proposition 301, separate from performance-based pay. But we are still significantly several steps away from having every single school in the district actually having a standalone, assigned, doesn't have to float, doesn't have to travel to another school. And that's certainly an expenditure recommendation that this body can look at.
I think it's something that we've told our public and our parents that this is a priority. And so I really believe that that needs to be put into this year's recommended priorities.
Would you like to make a motion?
Ms. Luna Rose.
Thank you. As the new board liaison, I appreciate the conversation. I didn't want to seem like I'm not here. I am. I'm listening to my colleagues. Mr. Hernandez, I do like the sustainability issue, but I'm also hearing, this sounds kind of like maybe teacher retention. Is that something that the BAC has talked about in the past?
we haven't talked about teacher retention specifically in terms of kind of like the strategies in order to implement good teacher retention, no.
We did the employee compensation in 22 was focused on teacher retention.
Yeah, within
That
the
was,
realm of compensation, but it wasn't necessarily, I mean, retention was part of it, but the focus was compensation specifically. But in terms of what are the strategies to increase teacher retention and just that focus, compensation being a part of it, that wasn't, hasn't been a priority specifically.
Because I'm wondering if that's, something, I mean, I know we only want to do 3 or 4, so we don't want to throw so much on the BAC, right? Because we only have a certain amount of time. But I think, we are, like other school districts, struggling. So what could we do? Is there anything this Budget Advisory Committee could do to help? I'm not sure. I mean, I've had people come up to me and talk to me about it, so I'm just asking the question.
I know that Mr. Fernandez in HR is specifically taking a look at those types of strategies and that type of work now that he's kind of coming into the full throttle of his role leading HR. So I wouldn't necessarily want to speak to it. I just know that there's work actually being handled in HR regarding focusing on retention. The one thing I would say is that if you want the BAC to focus on retention specifically for teachers, I mean, the BAC is really focusing within the realm of dollars and cents, right? In terms of the financial investment. So to Dr. Ravi's point, we focused on compensation. That compensation piece kind of carried us through all the way to fiscal year 23 because of the various compensation changes that have taken place. So really at that point, it's kind of above and beyond. And so if there's an investment strategy that you think that we should be focusing on, then maybe the BAC could look at it. But if it's really just strategizing specifically what we could be doing better, and then the dollars are just kind of ancillary to that conversation, I wouldn't necessarily put that on the BAC.
Okay, fair enough.
So here's what I'm recommending, and if I get some nods, I can make this an official motion. So what I'm recommending is that with the formula ratios, we mentioned a couple positions. We also include art and PE into that, so that when we're looking at these different positions, making sure that schools have what they need, they can also address art, music, and PE into that. And that's going to be a more apt issue to do more quickly as well, because that's going to funnel into the next budget year. We need to have those recommendations sooner than later, so then the team can then develop the budget based on recommendations and board approval. And so I'd recommend that our recommended priority areas for the BAC being formula ratios as presented here, in addition to music, art, and physical education, desegregation, reallocations, employee benefits, and sustainability. I'm seeing some now, so I'll make that an official motion.
I will second.
Ms. Shaw, and then Mr. Romero.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate, adding that in. However, as far as, having that be a recommendation to have them recommend formulas, I think we already have that information for a majority of these positions. I know counselors, it's like, 1 to like 350 or something like that. So I know we have that information already. So I'm not sure if it's really a good idea to have them look at that. Like, what we need them to do is, how are we going to pay for those positions? You know what I mean? Like, we already know the ratios. We can, look at other districts. And so that's like, I don't think that should be in their purview, but maybe how to fund them and how to fund them permanently.
Well, I think what the scope of what the BAC would do with this would be look at the ratios. Do they make sense? They don't make sense. So we're not hitting the counselor ratio, we're not hitting the monitor ratios that we would really need. All right, so if we change it from 1 to 400 or 1 to 300, how are we paying for it? And making recommendations on that. So not looking at just ratio numbers or how to sustain the current ratios, but looking at, what do ratios look like in an ideal world? How would that be paid for? What sources of funding we have? What would we have to give to take to give into this? And then is there any compromise ratios that we can fund in current resources, and then have more of a target ratio in the future if funding sources were to change? So I would see the BAC's kind of purpose in this is not just how to pay for current ratios or what recommended ratios they are. We know, the counseling organizations recommend 1 to 250. All right, well, we don't have the funding to get there right now, but what can we get to that's better for our students and that we can actually fund currently? So I think that's what the BAC would look at in terms of getting to a better place with some of these ratios and funding sources to recommend for our staff to bring to us.
Okay.
Mr. Romero.
So a question regarding desegregation reallocations. So when the court goes to the Ninth Circuit, hopefully in springtime, we'll see if we're still in the deseg or not. When we get out of this deseg, is a conversation happening that the public is going to be expecting some of these monies from deseg to be removed, these taxes, because we've been paying them, $63 million for so long, and how are we going to start cutting those things back? I know that's never what we want to hear, but from the general public out there, that the voting public, if they say they're out of deseg, why are we still spending this money?
Yeah.
Well, that is a question that is going to be answered by the 5 of you. So that's not necessarily our terrain in terms of voting on whether or not to levy a secondary tax. But what we will say is that we are fully responsible for adhering to our post-unitary status commitments of putting before you performance impact analyses, or PIAs, around areas that we do plan on implementing some cost reductions so that the board can make that decision transparently in terms of that's the way that you want to go. Regarding the desegregation allocation, this is really the bulk of this, if not the majority of it, pretty close to all of it, is going to be trying to secure the necessary funding inside of desegregation to cover the cost of all the academic loss positions that the board identified last spring that will no longer be funded by ESSER at the end of the year. So that's our main mission with deseg.
Right. That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the BAC priority areas say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Luna Rose, looking forward to a really great report in a couple months with some good recommendations.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to this committee.
Dr. Shaw.
Ms. Shaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Could you just clarify, so was the sustainability also one of the things you
Yes,
added?
that was part of the motion.
Okay. I didn't know if I heard that part of the motion.
I confirm that's what I said in the original motion, right? Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we have one more study action items. Dr. Trujillo, Governing Board Policy GBEF, staff use of digital communications and electronic devices, a new policy for us.
Yes, I'd like to welcome back our Associate General Counsel, Michael Aronoff. At our last governing board meeting in July, we took a shot at getting our governing board to approve of a first read for a new policy that I've seen as a big need since I arrived in the district. And I'm excited tonight to bring Mr. Aronoff back to present a version that I think is reflective of the feedback that we received on July 22nd, or the second meeting in July. And hopefully we'll get some governing board support for a first read. Mr. Aronoff?
Thank you, and good evening, board members, President Shaw. We, as Dr. Trujillo said, we were here a month ago with a version of this policy that, just like this one, stems from the ASBA model. It also incorporates some of the State Board of Education guidelines on use of social media by teachers in public schools in the school context. There were some questions that the board raised at that meeting, and we've tried to adapt this version of the policy, this proposal, to address some of those questions. We've reorganized with some headers to try to have some clarity about sort of which bullet points are sort of about what thing. So it starts off with some general rules in response to some of the concerns that were raised about trying to clarify. Most TUSD employees are using personal devices, cell phones or otherwise. And so we tried to clarify right at the outset in those general rules that we understand that people are going to be using probably personal mobile technologies, which we've defined earlier to include things like cell phones. But we want to be clear that when it comes to things like social media technologies, the software that people are using, that's where we want a little bit more control over that. We want to make sure that those are either district softwares or things that we have approved. We go on in the next section to talk about specifically communication with students. I'd say this is kind of the heart of this policy. This is the thing that we are most protective of, and the thing that we most want to regulate here. And so we've really tried to drill in here to the kinds of communications, the kinds of activities that we expect our staff to engage with on social media and to avoid on social media when interacting with students in particular, and to some extent families. And then the last section breaks out the pieces of this that are focused more on sort of reminders about other areas of law and policy that apply anyway, but are worth restating. One of those, Board Member Ekstrom, I remember I think you'd asked about the record retention. That's complex, and we can't go through all of it in this policy, but we have referred to our policy JR, which gives some additional guidance about student records. All of these other policies, this is a reminder to all employees that even if you're online, you're on social media, whatever you're doing, if you're acting in the course and scope of your employment, if you're acting as a TUSD employee, those policies still apply, and so we've had that guidance in place. So that kind of summarizes the changes, the things we've tried to clarify. We've tweaked some of the language so that it tries to be clear where the difference is when we're talking about hardware and software. And this is a first read, so if the board votes to move this forward tonight, it's voting to post this for public comment. I think Dr. Trujillo can touch on next steps we want to take in terms of getting staff input and on the policy beyond just the normal posting process. And then once we get adequate responses and feedback, we'd come back to the board for a second read.
Thank you, Mr. Aronoff. Governing board members. Mr. Romero.
I'd like to make a motion to put this up for review.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to put this as a first read with a second. Any discussion, governing board members? I'll say I really appreciate taking all that feedback from the previous meeting when this came up. I think you hit it a lot better this time around, and so I'll support this. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed or opposition? Item passes 5-0 as a first read. Thank you.
Thank you.
And anyone in the audience, please, they'll be available online to make any public comments so we can get some more feedback to make sure that the content here makes sense. Okay. We're on to our last item is going to be our information item 9.2, ransomware attack investigation findings. Dr. Trujillo.
President Shaw, members of the governing board, the first thing I would like to do is I would be remiss if I didn't thank our community, our employees, our families, all of those that have been anxiously awaiting sort of the conclusion of this very, very difficult incident that took place at the end of January. I want to thank you for your patience in terms of the many months that it has taken to engage the appropriate cybersecurity professionals to come on in and do the forensic work and the investigative work, as well as to engage the appropriate experts from the Microsoft that came in to assist us early on with our infrastructure challenges. So tonight, I'd like to provide a community update and, of course, a governing board update to the major areas of the investigative findings now that that work has been concluded. I would like to start by saying that at present, we don't have any evidence of misuse, that either as a group or individually, any of the information that was accessed as a part of the cybersecurity incident has been misused for any way, any shape or form. We don't have that, any evidence of that at this particular moment. This investigation, which of course has taken the last several months, was very, very extensive and exhaustive in nature. An individual file-by-file review of around 1 million individual documents was completed, searching for any employee or student, past or current, private, confidential identifying information. This investigation, as a result of this thorough review of over 1 million individual files, did unfortunately identify 29,000 individuals whose personal and confidential information may have been accessed. The identified individuals have been identified as current and former employees and students, as well as parents and dependents of current and former employees. Individual notification letters will be mailed out to each and every single one of these individuals that have been impacted this Friday, August 25th, to all of the affected individuals. The district will be providing membership in identity theft protection service that will be provided to the affected individuals, and their individual letters that will be mailed out starting on Friday, August 25th, will present to them the details of next steps that need to be taken for each individual to take advantage of our year-long credit monitoring and theft protection services that we'll be offering. It will also be offering additional details about additional steps that individual employees can take to protect themselves against any sort of online or financial fraudulent activities. So that is the quick update on where we're at as we close out the investigation. But now I'd like to bring on our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Blaine Young, and our Executive Director for Information Technology Services, to talk about where we are specifically with migration to the cloud. One of the things that we learned early on, in the earliest days and the earliest moments of this investigation, is that the best way to make sure that we are appropriately reducing, not necessarily eliminating, but reducing the possibility that this kind of incident can occur again in the future is to move our major systems to the cloud. So we wanted to make sure that part of this update updated the governing board and the community as to the status of that very, very important step. Mr. Young?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Trio, and good evening, Board President, members of the board. So coinciding with this update is going to be a progress update on the progress that continues in enhancing our systems, our processes, and our security. Robbie Hamadi, our Executive Director of Technology Services, has been leading this work within the district, so he's going to come up and just walk the board and the public through the progress made to date and some of the things that are still pending in our future. This is going to be technology, as you all know, constantly changes, and so it's an ongoing journey. And what has happened through this is our security posture has definitely been heightened, strengthened, and it's not just the technology itself. It's a shift in processes and behavior because collectively, security involves all of us working together. So you're going to hear a little bit about each of those things tonight from Mr. Hamadi. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Young, Dr. Trujillo, Dr. Shaw, governing board members. I will give you a quick update on some of the enhancements and updates that have been done before the incident, during, and after. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. One of the main things that we've done prior to the incident, and we continued and we sped up the enhancements, is strong password requirements. That means a password complexity that needs capital letters, small form letters, numbers, other characters, et cetera, and the length of the password has to be, longer than the usual a short word like 5 characters. Now it needs to be 14 characters or more for all staff. The password will be changed every 90 days from here on, so that has been implemented as well. Something called multi-factor authentication, or MFA, has been implemented also before the incident for external use, but also for internal after the incident. What multi-factor authentication means is that when you log in, you'll be requested to enter a PIN that is sent to your cell phone, and then you enter that PIN to make sure that that's you, and that's a second factor authentication. All student activities and all student programs are now accessed via what we call SSO, or single sign-on, meaning a student does not have to log in several times to access a math program or a reading program or another program. They log into our servers and they can access all the programs that are in the cloud. Anything that is cloud transition has also been done either before the incident or immediately after. And if the incident did anything, it sped up the transition. And again, what cloud means is instead of a program residing on a server or on a laptop, it's residing on a cloud, on the internet-based cloud, which is a very big server by itself. And what that means is it has extra security and protection. The protection is shared not only by TUSD, but by the company that provides the cloud. The program can be available from home or from school or anywhere you are, so it has adaptability and flexibility. And the program is tracked, so anybody who log in or try to hack is tracked also via the cloud. So this is where all big organizations like TUSD need to be, and this is where we are now. I don't want to say 100%, but the vast majority, maybe 75% or more, are now in the cloud or being transitioned to the cloud. And this is where we're going to be for the short and long future. We have been collaborating with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security on all cybersecurity programs. Since the incident, that collaboration has obviously sped up. These are programs that can potentially save the district up to $2 million that is being provided by the AZ Department of Homeland Security. All increases of security and monitoring and alert and working with our vendors and contractors and other districts and universities on data monitoring and filtering system and all other enhancements for our security is ongoing, is being updated on a daily and weekly basis, and this is how we are going to operate in the future. We started that, again, before the incident, but since the incident, we added a few more security features that will remain with us for years to come. Next slide, Gene. Again, some of the actually previous slide, if I can. Again, the cloud migration, we had a slide specifically for that. Our main systems at a district or any K-12 district or organization are your transportation system, student transportation system, that's in the cloud. Our student information system, that's in the cloud. Enterprise resource planning, anything financial or HR or benefits, that's in the cloud. Our time tracking system, when employees clock in and clock out, that's in the cloud. Our school safety dispatch is in the cloud. And all applications that students and teachers use are in the cloud, or the vast majority of them are in the cloud. And again, this is a way to go for the reasons I explained, the security and the flexibility for the data and all our systems. And this will be an ongoing transition, an ongoing upgrade for this year and for years to come as well. Next one. We have a mandatory cybersecurity training that all our employees at TUSD are undergoing currently. We will have 100% of our staff who are taking the class by August 31st, and that training will be mandatory twice a year from here on. That will teach all our staff how to, all the basic security of and what to do and what not to do. As you know, in any cyber security today, the main risk is user mistakes. Some people try to do things, bad things on purpose, but the vast majority of the time, somebody will make a mistake, will click on a wrong link or open a wrong email, and we're given orientation for our staff to at least do their due diligence of not making, of knowing what to do and what not to do on any network, so that we can protect our network, our students, and our staff, and everybody at TUSD. Ongoing district cybersecurity communication. So every time there's something that is going on, every time there's an update, every time we need to do something on after hours or on the weekend, we let people know what's going on. If we're updating our financial system or transportation system. So the communication about all the risk and the updates are ongoing as well. Again, partnering with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security on all the cybersecurity best practices, partnering with colleges and universities and other districts, and sharing information about what's going on, what we can do to be prepared for the next incident if there is an incident. And enhancement of our disaster recovery and business continuity, of course, and always doing periodic testing of trying to hack into our network and do something called like intrusion detection or intrusion prevention to make sure that we are testing our network all the time, that we are like at 100% secure or as close to 100% as we can. But anyway, that gives you like a quick snapshot of our last 6 months and the years before the incident. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Hamadeh. Mr. Young, I'm really excited about the quick work on especially the cloud migration and all the updates that were made. That was the feedback we received when the incident originally happened this winter, and the quick movement has been great. So I've been really thrilled to see some of the work coming out of operations here. Governing board members, any questions or other comments, Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, gentlemen. 2 questions. One, is this a continuing partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, or is this as an ad-needed basis?
No, it's a continuing collaboration.
Okay. And my second question is, I think a lot of us have our stuff on the cloud, so how are we going to ensure as best we can? I know that you're going to be doing testing, but not everything's foolproof. So is that, when you're doing those testings, are things you're going to let the community know you're doing? Is it just going to be surprise? I guess surprise would be better, but it's because I think I'm sure some of my other colleagues have received calls from parents, and especially with the information that'll be going out to public shortly. What does that look like for them?
Yeah, Ms. Luna Rose, the periodic testing on any network will be periodic. It'll be something that we plan and will inform the district and the staff and the parents and the students. So that will be one. But the other tool that we use that is very important is 24-hour monitoring of anything that goes on our data and whatever it is. If anybody logs into our network, if they try a wrong password or failed password or did something that is a little bit suspicious, our systems now can catch that. So you have those red flags that we see on our system, and we have our folks monitoring 24 hours pretty much to the point where if there is some incident after hours, after midnight, somebody can be texted or paged or send an email that there is some activity. So 24-hour monitoring, that's number one. Number two, periodic testing, hacking into our own system by a third party, and also doing all the patches and upgrades for any system to make sure you have the latest version and the most protected version.
Okay, so does this mean that any VPNs have been eliminated?
A lot of items have been eliminated, as a matter of fact. VPN have been eliminated except for urgent use. Things like personal laptops or phones have been blocked most of the time. A public Wi-Fi has been blocked. That's why we use hotspots for our students, for example, or for any external presenter who's presenting that do not have a login. So a lot of those items, email have been blocked for, as you know, probably the vast majority of attacks come through email because a hacker is trying to access your system. If they cannot access it physically, they send you a link, you click on the link, and now they have access. So a lot of email items have been blocked as well. Flash drives have been blocked, so our students and staff either cannot use a flash drive or is very restrictive. All documents will be password protected, so even if you make a mistake and enter wrong information on a document, you're protected with a password that's encrypted, so if it falls in the hands of somebody else, they cannot open it unless they're really a professional hacker and they know how to decrypt information. And unfortunately, those folks are out there as well. So we have to deal with the novice people trying to hack, but also with the professional experts who are trying to do something that is bad for our district. Okay. So we're doing our due diligence. Like we say in IT, it's not if it will happen again, it's when it will happen again. So what we try to do is be protected so that we have minimal damage and we can restore our systems as fast as possible.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your work on this, and as prompt as you could be.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. One you sort of answered. I was wondering, what happened to the guest Wi-Fi? Because I know we had it here, and it was what I was logging on to with my computer, and now I have to bring my old computer because Jean was never given the new password for my new computer, if that makes sense. And I know some members of the community have also requested a guest Wi-Fi password, and so I guess that's just something we're not offering to the community at this point.
Unfortunately, sometimes for security reasons, you have to sacrifice some items. However, we do provide a hotspot for people to be able to log in. Every once in a while, if there is a conference, let's say that is a whole week, we can create a full Wi-Fi just for that conference or training. So there are ways to still be secure, but give folks the flexibility. But the guest network, as it is before, most likely will never come back in the same way for security reasons, simply because anybody who knows how to encrypt or access the code will access the Wi-Fi and they'll do things that are perhaps not very recommended. Back in the day, we used to have people park on the street and access a Wi-Fi from a high school to do their, and we used to monitor that, but now we're putting a complete block to it.
Wow. Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, you listed like things that are on the cloud right now, and I was wondering if our the live and recorded video footage from our video cameras around the district, is that on the cloud?
The live
video
stream
footage, or live, as it's happening now, I know. The school safety has the dispatch center with all the cameras and stuff that they could see. But is that footage on the cloud, and whatever is recorded, and saved for an amount of time, does that go on the cloud as well?
Those type of systems are what we call hybrid cloud, meaning it can be on-prem and also on the cloud or halfway in between. Some items cannot be on the cloud for reasons because you need to have physical access. Oh. I'm not sure about school safety in particular, but we do have some hybrid cloud, which is midway between the old on-premise and in the cloud.
Okay, yeah, because I got a question from a community member wondering if our video cameras are safe from being hacked by someone who wants to just see what's happening on our campuses.
As a matter of fact, there is an ongoing security camera project as we speak to update our security on the cameras and who has access and how long do we keep a video and where can you access it from. This is ongoing. Most likely it will either be completely in the cloud or, as I said, it will be a hybrid cloud system.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, governing board members. Thank you for the presentation this evening.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Trujillo, we end with our future meeting dates and agenda items.
Well, a week from this evening, we celebrate all things career and technical education, CTE, with a joint governing board meeting over at the beautiful Innovation Tech High School, where our governing board will be treated to a school tour as well as a presentation on the status of the new medical careers building going up across from Innovation Tech. That will be next Tuesday, August 29th.
Dr. Trujillo, is a meeting live stream like most meetings will be?
This meeting, I do believe, will be live streamed, as treated as a regular governing board meeting.
I think so. I'm working with Christine from
Okay.
JTED, so I'll have more information. And
And all
send it
items
out.
are informational. There's no call to the audience or no executive committee.
No action will be
executive
taken. This is an informational study
Right.
session meeting. Ms. Borboa, can you confirm the start time for our viewers and the public?
I believe she said it was at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Thank you.
Right, 5 o'clock. Great, thank you. Governing board members, anything to conclude the meeting? All right, I'll call our meeting to conclusion. Thank you very much, everyone.